Well, look who just clicked play. Tell me, adventurer, are you from a tiny village with more chickens than people, or a giant city that never sleeps or showers? Write it in the comments. Surprise me. And yes, share this video like it's a family secret. Let's dive in. People love to claim that 60 feels like 40 these days. I've never believed that nonsense. The only folks who seem convinced are clinging to some fantasy, and lately I've met far too many of them. Reality hit me square in the jaw when I was 7. That's when I discovered Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, and the Tooth Fairy were all just stories. The Tooth Fairy, in fact, had passed away the year before. Now, standing on the threshold of 60, I sometimes feel like I've lived each of those years twice over. Sure, I can still pull off a lot of the things I used to in my 20s and 30s, like running a marathon. But these days, I'm doing it at half the speed. Do I regret things? Of course, who doesn't? But after years of chewing over those mistakes, I've learned something important. Obsessing over what might have been is a fast track to the grave. If all you do is mourn the chances you missed, you might as well climb into a coffin and hammer it shut yourself. I'm not ready for that. Not yet. So I get up every morning, punch the clock, and give it everything I've got, because that's what I'm paid to do. By my math, I've got maybe 9 solid working years left before I retire. And after that, the rest of my life is wide open. Will things change? Without a doubt. First order of business, packing up and getting out of the retirement community my wife talked me into 2 months ago. She's already retired and thriving here. Me? Every day I stay, I like this place less. Will I change my mind? Maybe. Or maybe I'll leave sooner. Samantha or no Samantha. Only time knows the answer. We used to own a house I adored, nearly 100 years old and officially on the town's historic registry. That designation came with irritating rules, sure, but owning it gave me a sense of pride nothing else could. A little bronze plaque by the door told strangers exactly who built it and when. We were only the second family lucky enough to live there. Over 20 years, we modernized the guts, new wiring, updated plumbing, all to code, but left the outside untouched. From the street, it was like stepping back in time. 2 years before selling, we restored the original Victorian paint scheme, white hedges out front completing the picture. It was beautiful. The only nightmare was the roof. Nobody made shingles like the originals anymore, so we spent months wrangling with the city for approval. When they finally signed off, I swore that would be my last major project there. We were 5 years from paying it off when we sold. If I'd known what Samantha had in mind, I never would have agreed. I'd still be living in that house. Where she'd be, I couldn't tell you. To this day, I don't understand how she convinced me to sell the house, pawn off our jewelry, and move here. Sometimes I joke she must have slipped something in my beer, because honestly, I can't explain it any other way. Don't get me wrong, this new place isn't terrible. It's clean, modern, practically brand new, but it's half the size of what we had. Sure, with the kids gone, 4 bedrooms were overkill, but the quality doesn't compare. The old house had thick plaster walls. This one's got flimsy drywall. And the ceilings? That ugly popcorn texture straight out of the 70s. We've got better appliances now, a fancy stove, a gourmet oven, but who cares? There's just the 2 of us. I'd trade all of it for my old fridge with the built-in ice maker that kept my beer cold to perfection. For now, I guess I'm stuck here, at least until I figure out my next move. Samantha's 2 best friends sold their homes and followed her lead, and I can't shake the feeling she expects me to just fall in line. Samantha used to work for the school district. When her years of service plus her age lined up, she grabbed the early retirement offer. The catch? Smaller paycheck, tighter budget. That lasted all of 9 months. Then suddenly, she needed new clothes. Workout outfits, casual wear, whatever she could justify. I never cared what she wore. I always thought she looked good in shorts and a t-shirt. But apparently Walmart wasn't cutting it anymore. Now it's boutique shops and upscale malls. At first, I was happy she reconnected with her old friends. They dragged her into tennis matches, golf games, dance practices, every social thing under the sun. But then I came home one night to find the house empty and a note by the microwave explaining where dinner was. That's when I lost it. Samantha, is this what we've come to? I can't even count on having dinner with my wife anymore? I knew I'd be late, she said, calm as ever. That's why I made sure your food was ready before I left for Clara's. What's so important at Clara's that you had to be there before 8:30? I shot back, glancing at my watch. 8:30? She laughed. Our dance group performed in the town square at 6. I couldn't let them down. You wouldn't want me to do that, would you? Samantha, I don't care about your dance group or tennis or golf until it starts cutting into us. What you do all day is your business. But when I get home from work, I don't want a note stuck to the microwave. That's rude, she muttered. Rude or not, I'm tired of it. And if this had happened once, fine. But it keeps happening. Why don't you just move in with Clara or Julia if you're never here? I tried to keep my voice even, but it cracked anyway. Look, she sighed. I'm sorry, it won't happen again. Why didn't you just come find us? The last time I tried, you bounced between 2 different places and ignored my calls. I wasn't about to run after my worthless wife. Since I was already back home, I decided to pour 2 glasses of wine, one for me and one for her, while she showered upstairs. That was her unspoken message. Tonight was supposed to be my lucky break. And for a while, it really was. An unforgettable night. Life with Samantha had always felt easy, not just good, effortless. After all our years together, we'd reached the point where we could almost speak without words. I thought I always understood what was going through her mind. Later, I'd find out just how wrong I'd been. When Samantha started bringing me along to meet her new friends from Temple Gardens, I didn't think much of it. Barbecues, dinner parties, group shopping trips, weekend getaways, we gradually got absorbed into their circle. Eventually, 2 other couples joined in, and before long, we were spending our weekends together at every event in the town square. Car shows, art festivals, cooking demos, I honestly enjoyed most of it. The dancing? That was another story. I'd manage 3 slow dances out of obligation, then step back and watch Samantha kick off her heels and throw herself into whatever group was on the dance floor. Jealous? Not even a little. I knew better than to hold her back. If I tried, she'd drive me insane, so I let it slide. At least in the beginning. The real breaking point hit one Saturday night. The group had decided to try a new restaurant at one of the town squares, and someone had made a reservation. But when we showed up, the maitre d' wouldn't let us through the door. The place, apparently, only served Temple Gardens residents. We tried explaining we were guests, but the guy wouldn't budge. Come on, Samantha, I muttered, seething. We're leaving. They couldn't pay me to eat here now. The others apologized, but I waved them off. It wasn't their fault. We'd just find somewhere else. If we lived here, we wouldn't have to deal with this, Samantha whispered, watching my reaction. And if pigs could fly, I'd eat ribs every night, I snapped back. Our house isn't moving in this market, and even if it did, we'd lose our shirts. Besides, you know this place has a million rules. I don't think I could handle that. We finished dinner in silence, and nothing more was said about it for almost a month. We still saw the group, though people drifted in and out. Then, one Friday evening, Samantha met me at the door, practically glowing. Scott, what would you say if I told you we had a buyer for the house? She asked. What house? What buyer? I stared at her, blindsided. You know those flyers we always get, saying another house sold and to call the realtor if we're interested? Well, I called one a couple weeks ago. He appraised our place. Says buyers are looking for homes exactly like ours, and we could get top dollar even now. You didn't think to ask me first whether I even wanted to sell? I was just daydreaming, Scott, she said, sheepish. Just wondering what it might be like, that's all. Daydreaming is one thing, I said flatly. You've gone way past that. Fine, she admitted, but he called this morning. 2 couples want to see it this weekend. Isn't that amazing? I didn't even have words. Are you out of your mind? Why would I want to sell? I love this house. That kicked off a 4-hour argument. I've got to hand it to her. Samantha came prepared. She laid everything out. We'd clear a huge profit, enough to buy something new and still have plenty left for savings. Our current place was far too big for just the 2 of us. Utilities alone were $400 a month. This neighborhood's historic, she reminded me. You love that. But think about retirement. Do you really want to keep up with this house? In a couple years, it's going to need painting. Wouldn't it be nice to have something new, something easy to maintain? I know you love it here, she said softly. But don't you at least want to see what we could get? The next morning, we met with the realtor. He showed us comparable listings and suggested an asking price. 2 offers were already circling, and the house could close in 60 days. When he mentioned his commission, I nearly choked. I managed to haggle him down to 1.25% before shaking on it. Why don't we go check out Temple Gardens? Samantha suggested. I'm sure our friends would be thrilled to give us a tour. Yeah, I thought, thrilled. I headed straight for the Temple Gardens sales office. A massive map dominated the wall, a sprawling community stretching across 3 counties. They were already in their 9th expansion phase, with land set aside for 3 more. This is the largest development of its kind outside of Sun City, Arizona, the rep boasted. 16 golf courses, 28 tennis courts, 6 artificial lakes, 2 town squares packed with restaurants and shops. Every medical service you could want is within 5 minutes. 3 business complexes, and next year we break ground on our own hospital. Once you move here, you'll never need to leave. The pitch was impressive. But one thing rubbed me the wrong way immediately. A single real estate office controlled every new and resale property. And the restrictions, endless, suffocating restrictions, were everywhere. I tried not to let my irritation show, but it felt like the developer still had their hands on every inch of the place. He had to be turning a profit off this deal. When he asked what, exactly, we were hoping to find, Samantha calmly produced a neatly typed list. As I've mentioned before, she had done her homework meticulously. We toured several model homes. They were nice enough, sure, but none of them felt particularly remarkable. When he pressed us about our price range, I made it clear we wouldn't spend more than $75,000, almost 80 grand, less than we'd first planned. He ran through the properties available at that price and pointed out where each sat within the community. Scott, this one's only 3 blocks from Julia's place, Samantha said. Well, isn't that just perfect? I thought, sarcasm dripping in my head. Let's take a look at this one, she added brightly. This house, at least, didn't feel as sterile as the staged models we'd just seen. There were a few inviting details, plus a small patio with a hot tub. Still, the space felt tight to me, and when I asked about the attic, everyone looked at me like I'd grown another head. It's not exactly an attic, the realtor explained. More like a crawl space above the ceiling beams. I just want to check the insulation, I told him. Only about 6 inches of loose fill fiber up there. Almost immediately, I spotted 2 more problems, and my face must have given me away. This is a pre-owned house, the realtor reassured me, scribbling on his clipboard. A few issues are normal. Is there any kind of warranty on the place? I asked. And would the sellers fix anything serious? I'll have to confirm with them, Mr. Morgan, he said smoothly. But serious buyers usually find the owners flexible. I told him I wanted to see at least 3 more houses before making any decisions. He showed us 3 others in about the same condition, and one priced $30,000 higher. That last one was far more appealing to me. Turns out that old saying, you get what you pay for, really was true. After 4.5 hours of house hunting, he suggested we grab dinner. Over the meal, we talked pricing and location, and when I mentioned paying cash, his eyes nearly sparkled. Maybe we can work something out on one of our older models near the town square, he said, practically licking his lips. They usually come fully upgraded and furnished. Well, if the price is right, I replied, my wife and I are open to anything. The house he pitched was 3 blocks from the original town square. Technically a model home, though it had been rented out repeatedly over the past 5 years. It came with a 2-year appliance warranty and the standard workmanship guarantee. The floor plan had 2 bedrooms, 2 full baths, and a modest den that could double as a TV room. The kitchen opened into the large family room, which made the space feel bigger than it really was. There was even a 2-car garage. Only thing missing? A pool. You could put in a small one, he told me, but the building code requires a screened enclosure. That was the first of many little details that would eventually drive me crazy about living there. At the time, though, everything looked promising. Over the next week, Samantha, Julia, Clara, and their husbands wouldn't stop talking about how perfect the house was. The realtor called constantly, offering details, asking questions, reminding me two other couples were also interested in the properties we'd toured. Eventually, I caved. If Samantha was going to spend all her time here anyway, I figured I might as well live close enough to know where she was when I came home from work. 2 months later, our old place was sold, and we moved into the new one. I had the kitchen and family room painted a soft coral. We held a garage sale to unload extra furniture, only to learn later that yard sales weren't even allowed in the new community. The daily commute was around 20 minutes, but honestly, it was better than I expected. Samantha loved the move, and for the first couple of months, I definitely reaped the benefits of her good mood most nights. There was even one night I had to tell her I had a headache. The first real conflict came when she decided we needed a golf cart. Everyone, and I do mean everyone, owned one. The community even had separate lanes for them, and come evening, there were 10 times more carts than cars on the road. We already had 2 vehicles, and community rules said neither could be parked in the driveway overnight. If we bought a cart, something would have to go. "Scott, why not sell your Mustang?" Samantha suggested. "You hardly drive it, and we'd use the golf cart most of the time." "No way," I shot back. "That's a classic, the first Cobra Mustang they ever made. I'll find storage, but I'm not selling it." Some things women just don't get. Storage ended up costing me nearly $100 a month, but it was worth it. Most evenings after dinner, Samantha wanted to walk to the town square for music or window shopping. Fun at first, but after a while, it felt like she was just rushing through dinner so she could get to the dancing. Samantha danced every single night without fail. We met new people constantly, but my involvement was limited to a couple of slow dances before I retreated to the sidelines to watch. The very first night at the square, I noticed something surprising. Alcohol flowed freely at every event. Apparently, the thinking was that since most people drove golf carts instead of cars, drinking was safer, or at least that's what they liked to believe. People certainly took advantage of it. I couldn't say exactly how many accidents happened nightly, but judging from the sheer volume of drinks, there had to be a few. So while Samantha danced her heart out, I sat back and drank. The first time I ever met Ellen was purely by chance. I was leaning against a high-top table, sipping a Miller Lite and watching my wife sway to the band on stage, when the older woman in the wheelchair beside me fumbled her grip. Her beer slipped from her hand and clattered to the floor. "Ah, hell! Mind grabbing that for me?" she said, her voice raspy yet sharp. "Of course," I answered, stooping down to retrieve it. I brushed the rim with my sleeve before handing it back. "No need to worry about germs," she quipped, flashing a sly grin as she raised it to her mouth. "Alcohol kills whatever's crawling in there, and if it doesn't, well, I'm 87, not like I'm in a hurry to outlive eternity." "Most of it's gone anyway," I replied as I stood. "I'll get you a fresh one." "Just make sure it's not light beer," she shot back. "I don't drink watered-down rabbit piss unless I absolutely have to." I laughed and headed to the bar. A moment later, I returned with a cold Budweiser in hand. "Here you go," I said, sliding it toward her and swapping it for the empty bottle. "Keep the glass," she said, tapping her bottle against mine. "No point in dressing it up fancy." She took a small sip, closed her eyes for a second, and let out a satisfied sigh. "That's the good stuff. Name's Ellen Thatcher. You?" "Scott Morgan," I said. "My wife Samantha and I just moved here a couple of months ago." "And where's Samantha hiding?" "Over there," I said, nodding toward the dance floor. "Yellow sundress, fourth one from the left." "She's beautiful," Ellen said approvingly. "Been married long?" 38 years this September. "So why aren't you out there dancing with her?" "I only dance to slow songs," I admitted. "Anything else, and I trip over myself." Ellen laughed. "My Carter, bless his soul, couldn't dance worth a damn either. I swear he broke a toe or two trying. When his hip went bad, I was secretly relieved. Spared me from getting trampled." She took another swig. "You might want to pace yourself," I teased. "At this rate, you'll never make it home." "Oh, don't you worry about me," she said, jerking her chin toward a group of women across the room. "See that black woman over there? She's my nurse. Drives me here every night, parks me close to the band, then wanders off to catch up with her friends. Checks in every so often. When the music's done, she wheels me back, hoses me off if I've wet myself, and tucks me into bed. Not glamorous, but hey, still breathing. Well, mostly. To staying vertical, I said, lifting my bottle. She clinked hers against mine. Tell me something. You fool around? I nearly choked. Beer shot up my nose and I sputtered into my handkerchief. Good Lord, don't croak on me, she barked, smacking my arm. Where the hell did that come from? I coughed out. And no, Ellen, I'm not cheating on my wife. Lots of people around here come from an era where marriage meant forever, she said matter-of-factly. Raised their kids, worked themselves half to death, and then found themselves bored stiff in retirement. Some figure now's their chance to experiment. Jesus, Ellen, I muttered. This place is basically a retirement ward. Maybe, she said, smirking, but don't let the snow on the roof fool you. There's still fire in the furnace. She tilted her bottle back and waved toward her nurse for another round. How many do you usually knock back? I asked. 3's my limit, she said. But since you're buying, I'll go 4. My record's 6, New Year's Eve. Passed out by 10:15 and missed the fireworks, never trusting anyone to wake me again. A few songs later, the music paused, and Samantha walked over, cheeks flushed from dancing. Ellen, this is my wife, Samantha, I said. Samantha, meet Ellen. Lovely to meet you, Samantha said warmly, shaking her hand. Lord, you look good, Ellen said with a wink. 56, you said? You could have fooled me. I'd guess 45. Samantha blushed. I rolled my eyes. Well, Ellen, we should head out, I said, slipping my hand into Samantha's. Hope we'll see you around. I'm here every night, Ellen said with a grin. Unless my nurse smothers me with a pillow, you'll find me right in this chair. Out in the parking lot, Samantha leaned close and whispered, Where on earth did you meet her? She was sitting next to me when you started dancing, I said. God, I hope I've got half her energy when I'm 87. And that was the beginning of my friendship with Ellen. She stood barely 5'2", carried maybe $150 on her frame, and wore her thin silver hair coiled neatly into a bun. She and her husband had moved to Temple Gardens after selling off his business in New Jersey. They'd snagged a first-floor apartment back before anyone realized how valuable the place would become, so they enjoyed perks later tenants had to fight for. As Ellen told it, their first home there had been nothing more than a cramped 2-story cabin, modest, but wholly theirs. Many years later, they finally put down roots in what she triumphantly declared to be a real house. By that time, she had watched the tiny settlement, once barely 200 homes tucked into the hills, expand into a vast neighborhood of more than 20,000 residents. She had an uncanny ability to know everything going on in town, often before the newspaper even sniffed it out. I discovered that talent of hers far sooner than I would have liked. Her life creed was uncomplicated. Live boldly, savor every day, and aim to make it to 90. After that, she claimed, every extra year was just frosting on the cake. I ran into her nearly every evening when we wandered toward the square in the center of town. I'd always offer to buy her a beer. We'd park ourselves on a bench, talking about life, tossing around dreams, and, mostly, trading juicy gossip about the circus of drama swirling through the community. I never figured out how she always knew everything. Even when her stories sounded completely absurd, I'd later realize she'd been right, and have to eat my words more often than I'd care to admit. Excuse me, mind if I sit here? I asked as I approached, 2 beers in hand, toward Ellen's wheelchair. Don't you excuse me, she barked with a grin. Sit your butt down. What do I look like to you, a dainty southern lady? I laughed, and so did she, snatching one of the beers out of my hand. Your wife around tonight? She asked casually. Yeah, I said, pointing toward a lively group dressed head to toe in cowboy hats and boots. Over there, Samantha's with that bunch. You better keep watch with that crowd, Ellen muttered, squinting suspiciously. Not saying anything's happening, but some of those fellas have reputations. They're almost 70, Ellen, I shot back, puffing out my chest in mock bravado. I could take every one of them if I had to. She smirked. Sure you could, tough guy. Just don't come crying to me when you get blindsided. Relax, I said. Nothing's going down. But she was practically bursting at the seams with something. I arched an eyebrow. Okay, spill it. What do you know? Her eyes sparkled mischievously. Better grab us another round, she said. This tale's worth 2 beers. I headed back to the bar and returned with a Corona for myself and a Budweiser for her. All right, I said, passing her the bottle. What's the scoop about this band? She leaned in close, glancing around the square before whispering, They're all part of it. I blinked. You've got to be kidding me. Half of these guys look too old to care about any of that. Appearances, she said, wagging her finger at me, can fool you. Back in the day, this place shut down by 9. Everyone went home to their own beds. Now, folks still go home to bed, just not always their own. I glanced at the clumsy dancers in front of us. How the hell do you even know this stuff? See that tall, thin guy with the black hair? She asked. I nodded. Every 3 weeks he puts on makeup. Used to be a banker up north. Lost his wife after they moved here. Got a fat pension, nice car, takes ladies out for dinner and wine. I squinted. Not exactly Prince Charming, though. He doesn't need to be, Ellen said. Around here there are 2 or 3 widows for every single man. They'll scratch each other's eyes out for someone like him. He's got hair, cash, and apparently still knows how to keep a woman happy. What more do they need? I opened my mouth to argue, but she waved me off. And that bald guy with the earring? She continued. Total gym nut. Works out 4 hours a day. Best shape of his life. Half the women here, married or not, would hop on him in a heartbeat. And rumor has it, she giggled like a teenager, he's packing like a horse. I nearly spat out my beer. She wasn't finished. He's married, she whispered, lowering her voice conspiratorially. But word is, his wife swings both ways, if you catch my meaning. Hold on, I said, laughing. You've clearly had too much beer. This is nuts. Scott, she said suddenly, her face deadly serious. I can name half the people here and tell you exactly where they live. I may be old and half blind, but my ears? Perfect. And people say the wildest things when they think nobody's listening. I shook my head. I just can't picture this place as some kind of geriatric Sodom and Gomorrah. Ellen threw her head back and cackled. Scott, we might be old, she said, but we're sure as hell not dead. We've got nothing but time, and everyone's looking for excitement to fill it. And hey, nobody here's worried about getting pregnant. I scanned the crowd. There were a few younger folks in their 50s, sure, but most were decades older, tourists aside. No way, I thought. No way. But Ellen was never wrong. All right, I said at last. Let's pretend I buy this. You're saying they'd actually hit on my wife while I'm sitting here? She smirked. You're still clocking in at work every day, aren't you? A brisk game of tennis to kick off the morning, followed by a plunge into the pool to wash off the heat. Maybe cap it off with a couple of ice-cold drinks. That was usually all it took. Before long, they'd circle around her like sharks that had scented blood. A new target. Most of the women here? They'd already been through that same routine, again and again. Every time a fresh couple arrived in the community, the men treated it like sport, another conquest waiting to happen. What else did they have to do with their time? Did I buy into her explanation? Not entirely, but I chose to keep my guard up the way I used to back in the day. If any one of them so much as hinted at stepping toward my wife, I'd shut it down before they even realized what hit them. Why hadn't we just stayed in our own damn house? Still, we kept orbiting the same crowd, the group Samantha called her friends, 4 other couples, all of whom we'd gotten close to shortly after moving here. 4 months in, I noticed something wasn't right. Julia and Clara, Samantha's closest confidants, began acting strangely toward me. They'd always been her friends, sure, but I thought I had my own footing with them too. Lately, though, they barely acknowledged me. Eye contact became rare, limited to what politeness demanded. One night I finally asked Samantha, Honey, did I do something to piss off Julia or Clara? They avoid me like the plague whenever we're together. She gave me a quizzical look. Did you say something to their husbands? No, We mostly talk sports or politics, nothing about the wives. You're reading too much into it, she said, brushing me off. Don't worry, I'll handle it. 2 weeks later, the town's summer festival drew everyone out. The square was jammed, music blasting, lights swinging across the crowd. I danced a couple of songs with Samantha before letting her drift back to her circle of friends. With 2 beers sweating in my hands, I went searching for Ellen. Keeping your distance, huh? She teased when I found her. Got yourself a younger woman to replace me? She snatched one of the beers and grinned as I dropped into the chair beside her. Ellen, I said with mock solemnity, you know you're irreplaceable. If I were 10 years younger, I'd have you believing every bit of charm I could muster. She tilted her beer toward Samantha's group across the square. Didn't I warn you? Warn me about what? Those are our friends from back home, I said. Don't care where they're from, she shot back. Same clique. They moved here a year and a half ago. Been trading partners for 9 months straight. You're insane, I said flatly. Want to wager on it? You're actually serious? 1 beer a night, she said with a smirk. Every time you see me here, you owe me one. I already buy you beer, I pointed out. Exactly, now it'll just count toward the bet. You don't even feel bad about hustling me? I asked. Not a bit, she laughed. I only say I do so you'll feel guilty enough to keep offering. Fine, I said. You've got yourself a deal. But how are we even going to prove something like that? Scott, she said, her tone suddenly serious, have I ever been wrong about this stuff? Why can't we just assume I'm right for once? I countered. I've known them longer than you. Been to their parties for years. Nobody's ever crossed a line. What about Samantha? Ellen fired back. You think they'd come through you first? Or maybe they don't want you knowing anything. Ever consider that? Her words dug in. I couldn't shake them. My mind started tracing how we even ended up here in the first place. I can't picture Samantha doing something like that, I muttered. Who pushed for the move? Ellen pressed. Didn't those couples get here first? Didn't they nudge her into following them? I hated where she was steering the conversation. You're saying Samantha lied to me? I'm not saying that, Ellen replied evenly. I'm saying she wanted to be near her friends. Maybe she didn't know about their habits back then, but she knows now. Ellen, Samantha, and I have a good life. She doesn't need anyone else to make her happy. It's not about happiness, Ellen said quietly. It's about the adrenaline, the thrill of doing something forbidden and getting away with it. And trust me, plenty of husbands here have been caught doing far worse. Most folks eventually let it slide. What else can they really do? More often than not, the husbands are the ones footing the bills. Even if everything were split down the middle, the wives couldn't sustain the lifestyle they've grown accustomed to. Their friends are here. Their routines are here. They've built entire lives around this community. So why burn it all down over a quick fling in some dusty old hayloft? Most just look the other way. Some even end up participating. Rarely do couples actually separate over it. The only times I've seen things truly fall apart is when it's the wife who strays. Men don't forgive that sort of thing easily. And honestly, why would they? They cut her loose and start circling the single women in town like vultures. Ellen, I get that this is what you're used to, I told her. But Samantha isn't like them. She's my wife. I've known her practically my whole life. She would never do that to me, not in a million years. I hope you're right, Ellen said, setting down her empty glass. You're one of the good ones, Scott. I'd hate to see you get blindsided, but I've seen it happen more times than I can count. Speaking of which, I need another beer. Want one? You really have to ask? I handed her my mug. On my way to the bar, I looked toward the dance floor. The group was laughing, spinning each other around, having the time of their lives. Ellen had to be wrong about Samantha. She just had to be. I grabbed 2 beers, tossed some bills at the bartender, and headed back. Ellen was still watching the women. Not Samantha exactly, but the ones around her. The older ones were quiet, studying her closely, like they were waiting for something. Suddenly, I felt like maybe I should be watching too. By the time I sat back down, the music was slowing. Didn't mean to rattle you, Ellen said, sipping her drink. This isn't a wager I want to win. Trust me, I'd love to be wrong. but I never am. I'd bet cash that before the night's over, Samantha's going to ask if you want to head over to someone's house. I've seen the whispering. The way they keep checking the time? They're planning something. She might even float it to you tonight, just to gauge your reaction. Right now, I muttered, I don't think I'd take that news too well. Relax, Scott. Like I said, I might be wrong. And whatever happens, don't lose it. Don't do anything reckless. Don't end up in jail. I actually enjoy having you around. Besides, she added with a smirk, if I am right, I already have plans for you. Hey babe, ready to go? Samantha's voice cut through the tension as she walked up smiling. How's it going, Ellen? Keeping my husband out of trouble? I think he's the one keeping me out of trouble, actually, Ellen replied. Scott, Samantha said brightly. The band's heading over to Clara and Mark's place. They asked if we want to tag along. What do you think? Could be fun. I looked at Ellen. What's your call? Go, she said with a small grin. You're off tomorrow anyway. All right, I told Samantha. If you're up for it, let's go. I turned to Ellen as I stood. See you tomorrow? Remember what I said, she called after me as we walked away. We swung by the house first to grab the golf cart. Clara and Mark's place was about a mile down the road. Samantha chatted nonstop the whole ride while I drove in silence, my head somewhere else entirely. Their place wasn't quite as nice as ours, but they'd done some upgrades, enclosed the patio, added a hot tub. Julia and Brian lived 2 blocks over in a nearly identical house, though they'd opted for a pool instead. By the time we pulled up, 5 other couples were already there, drinks in hand, scattered conversations, easy laughter. Maybe Ellen had been wrong about all of it. Samantha slipped into the crowd while Mark handed me a beer and launched into a rant about the new neighborhood rules. Total garbage, he said, lighting a cigarette. We're drafting a petition to fight half of them. I get protecting property values, I said, scanning for Samantha. But yeah, they went way overboard this time. Exactly, Mark agreed, blowing smoke into the air. The night stayed mellow until the music kicked up. Then the dancing started. I don't dance, so I stayed in my seat, nursing my beer, until something caught my eye. Samantha was on the dance floor, with Carter. It looked harmless enough, but I couldn't stop wondering how long it would stay that way. Brian wandered over and handed me another beer. You good, Scott? He asked. I didn't answer right away. Couldn't take my eyes off Samantha and Carter. When Brian leaned in and mentioned how great Samantha looked tonight, that was it for me. Whatever plans this group had for us died right there. Well, Brian, I said loud enough for half the room to hear, Samantha and I are calling it a night. Gotta get my fiancée home before she drinks too much and does something she'll regret. I saw Carter's hands inch lower as I spoke. Maybe next time we'll host at our place. I shoved the beer back at Brian, crossed the room to Samantha, and gently took her hand. Come on, Samantha, we're leaving. And without another word, I walked her out the door. Scott, we literally just got here, and I'm finally having a good time. Then you've got a choice to make, don't you? I said, keeping my voice even but unyielding. Either you stay here with your friends, or you come home with me right now. It's entirely up to you. For nearly 15 seconds, she didn't move. Her expression shifted as the weight of my words sank in. This wasn't me bluffing. There was more behind what I said, and she felt it. I'll go home with you, she finally murmured. Good call, I replied, steering her toward the door. I turned to the others with a polite excuse. Sorry to cut this short, but Samantha's wiped out. I need to get her home. We'll try to stay longer next time. Clara caught my look, and without a word, understood this wasn't something to push. She touched my arm briefly. Drive safe, Scott, she said softly. Lots of drunks out on the roads tonight. I forced a thin smile, and together Samantha and I walked out into the night. As we pulled away from the house, she turned toward me, brows knitted. Why did we leave so suddenly? I was actually having fun back there. I'll lay it out for you, I answered, my tone flat. I didn't like the way you were dancing with Carter. His hands were all over you, and I figured it was safer for us to just get out of there. Scott, come on, he wasn't doing anything that bad. If I touched his wife the way he touched you, how would you feel about that? I kept my eyes locked on her. It only took a beat for her to break. "You're probably right," she admitted softly. "Maybe I had a little too much to drink." "Maybe," I said, letting my tone soften slightly. "But it's still early. When we get home, maybe I'll dance with you myself, see if I can get you in the mood." I gave her hand a playful squeeze. "Or we could pull over by the town square, take you in the back of the golf cart. Haven't christened that thing yet." We eventually made it home and things happened. But honestly, it felt one-sided, like she was just checking a box rather than being there with me. That might have been the exact moment Samantha realized I'd never fit into her shiny new circle of friends. And for me, it was the moment I started wondering if she'd already crossed a line before last night. I prayed she hadn't, but judging by her attitude today, that prayer felt thin. Sunday breakfast was quiet, tense. I told her straight. I didn't like the way she'd been all over Carter. If it kept up, we'd be finding a different group of friends. Period. "Scott, it was just the alcohol," she shot back, defensive. "Carter's probably in way more trouble with his wife right now." Nice deflection, I thought. "And since I'm shopping with Clara and Julia later, I'll talk to them about it too," she added. "I didn't know you were going out today." "I told you last week," she replied. "Kohl's is having a 50% off sale. All of us wives are going." I sighed. I was hoping to spend some quiet time together today. She smirked. "We did last night, if you remember. But maybe I'll pick up something special today, for later." I considered tailing her after she left, but if she caught me, that would open a door I wasn't ready to walk through. I needed another solution. Hiring a PI was out of the question. Too expensive, too messy. The internet, though. The internet had everything I needed. A GPS tracker, $100. 2 phone taps and a receiver, $75. A cheap camera system with audio, $155. Not exactly high-end, no Blu-ray clarity, no surround sound. But for under $350, I'd either confirm my suspicions or finally bury them. Around 5, she came home with her arms full of shopping bags. I already had dinner handled, steaks searing on the grill, baked potatoes in the oven, salad chilling in the fridge. I asked her to set the table while she babbled excitedly about the deals she scored. She promised I'd see one of her finds later tonight. Dinner was actually good. Afterward, she suggested we walk to the town square to enjoy the music and the crowd. We danced 4 songs in a row, too fast, too slow, before I said we should call it a night. Later, I grabbed 2 beers and went to meet Ellen. "I thought you were going to tell me everything tonight," she said, snatching the cigarette from my fingers. "So what's the verdict on Miss Perfect? You think she's sneaking around?" "Ellen," I chuckled. "No one's called her that in 20 years. "Guess I'm out of touch," she teased. "But cheating's still cheating, whatever you call it." "And if she talked you into it?" Ellen smirked. "That wouldn't count?" I exhaled. "I'm still not sure, but give me a week. I'll know. By Tuesday, the gear will be set up. I'll have my answer one way or another." "And if it's bad?" she asked quietly. I hesitated. "Haven't figured that part out yet. I've been forcing myself to move carefully, one moment at a time. After more than 3.5 decades together, I can't even picture my world without her in it." "Hey," someone joked one night. "You two should try swinging, might spice things up." I glared back, making it clear I didn't find it funny. Another voice chimed in, laughing. "If Samantha's not up for it, you could always invite me. God knows I could use some excitement. I might even show those guys a trick or two, unless they kill me first." She laughed, and I managed to smile too, right until I noticed her across the room swaying in another man's arms. I prayed I could keep myself together long enough to know the truth. Later, on the walk home, Samantha's fingers threaded tightly through mine. It reminded me of when we first married, like the spark we had back then was flickering alive again. The next morning, when the alarm blared, I wanted nothing more than to stay under the covers, ignore reality, and just hold her. Twice, I almost convinced myself to call in sick, to forget about everything and stay wrapped in her warmth all day. But I didn't. I forced myself out of bed. I'm not 20 anymore. After 2 rounds of passion, my body aches for days, and she'd probably still suggest going shopping afterward. For my own sanity and my wallet's, I dragged myself to work. By Monday, sitting at my desk, I couldn't stop replaying Ellen's comment in my head. There was no way Samantha would ever be caught up in something like that. Sure, she'd been acting differently lately, but that didn't automatically put her in the same crowd as her reckless old friends. Still, a heavy knot formed in my gut and tightened with each passing day. One way or another, I knew the truth would come out soon. That was the only thing keeping me steady. Chapter 2. Fragments of a Conversation. Tuesday morning, the shipment I'd been waiting on finally arrived at work. After unpacking the boxes and skimming the instructions, I grabbed my phone and called Samantha. "Running a little late tonight?" I told her. "Go ahead to the square without me." "Yes, sir," she teased, her voice playful. "Kids, don't wait up," I added with a grin. "I'll meet you there when I'm done." "You sure?" she asked. "I can hold off if you'd rather." "Nah, go ahead and have fun, just not too much fun." I chuckled at my own joke. "All right," she said softly. "Don't be too long." When I got home later, the first thing I did was slide a GPS tracker onto her golf cart. After that, I tapped the kitchen and bedroom phones, then planted hidden cameras in both the living room and our bedroom. The receivers went into the garage, tucked behind a dusty box on my workbench. I linked everything to our home computer and tested the feeds. The cameras worked flawlessly. Even the phone taps came through crystal clear when I called the house from my cell. Within half an hour, I'd wired every inch of our home. I told myself I was doing it to protect our marriage, even though part of me knew the truth might destroy it. Remote access through my laptop meant I could watch from anywhere, as long as the home system stayed on. 10 minutes later, I changed clothes and headed out toward the town square. The plaza was its usual self, jammed with people from dusk until late evening. The only thing that ever cleared it out was a downpour, and Florida rarely offered those at night. I spotted Samantha dancing amid a lively group in the center, while Ellen lingered at the edge near the DJ booth, chatting with two older women. I grabbed 2 beers and made my way over to her. She spotted me arriving alone and raised an eyebrow. "Was starting to think you weren't coming," she said. "I've been busy," I muttered. "Bugged the whole damn house." "Scott," she breathed, her voice softening. "Sometimes it's better not to know. There's mercy in ignorance, if you understand me." "You're my friend," she added quietly, squeezing my hand. "I don't want to lose that over this." "I can't live not knowing," I admitted. "It's eating me alive." "I just don't want you doing something you can't take back," she said carefully. "I've got plans for you, and none of them involve visiting you in jail." She hesitated, her face softening. "Maybe we're wrong, you know. Maybe she's still that girl you married all those years ago." But deep down, both of us knew she wasn't. Samantha asked me to dance more than once that night, and like any decent husband I obliged, grinning even as I made a fool of myself in front of half the town. By 8:30 we were home. We didn't make love. My head was too cluttered, my chest too heavy. When she asked if something was wrong, I simply kissed her forehead and whispered, "I love you." Sleep, as expected, never really came. Wednesday and Thursday drifted by without incident. Samantha filled her days with social plans, coffee dates, lunches, endless little gatherings, always busy, always surrounded by people. Through the cameras, I studied her morning rituals, the shower, the makeup, the meticulous way she dressed. Even now, she looked stunning. Tank tops, shorts, sandals, effortlessly beautiful. Part of me wished I could just stay home and watch her exist. By Friday, curiosity finally won. At lunch, I opened the feeds. I watched her asleep in our bed, peaceful and unbothered, and longed to be there beside her. Then she stirred, rose for the shower. While she was gone, the phone rang. Julia's voice left a message for me to call her back. When Samantha re-emerged, dressed and radiant, I caught myself staring. Even after all these years, time hadn't dulled her. The living room feed caught her in the kitchen, preparing coffee and a bagel while scrolling her phone. 2 messages from her social groups, and another brief note from Julia, asking Samantha to call her back. I paused the stream and walked into the dining room to pour myself some coffee. As I stood there, cup in hand, I thought about everything that had shifted since we moved here, how slowly, quietly, the world around us had changed. For Samantha, life had unraveled faster than she could comprehend. It was like stepping off a quiet farm in rural Wisconsin and finding herself lost in the pandemonium of Midtown Manhattan. There were, admittedly, brief sparks of excitement, mostly thanks to the endless parade of food options, but this constant sprinting around, it was never what I envisioned for retirement. The only thing I'd ever been certain about when dreaming of retiring was finally splurging on my own cappuccino maker. The sludge they served in the community dining hall barely qualified as coffee. Back at my desk, I hit play on the monitor, watching my wife wordlessly eat her breakfast as I sipped my own cup and the video rolled. I almost turned it off. Seriously, how long can you watch someone chew before your brain shuts down? Mind-numbing stuff. But I left the feed running anyway. Then she picked up the phone. I had to toggle from video to audio. The wiretap couldn't record both at once. "Hi, Julia, it's Samantha, how are you?" A pause, then, "Just making sure you didn't forget about today." Another pause, then my wife's voice. "I don't think I'm going. I told you Scott would never agree to this, he's just not wired that way. Doesn't swing like that, you know?" Julia laughed. "Well, from what I've seen lately, you've been having a good time. And Carter? He hasn't stopped talking about you since Thursday." Thursday. My chest clenched. That was the day the cracks began to show. Samantha let out a shaky laugh. Thursday was crazy. Never been with two guys before. Weird, but fun. My gut dropped into a hollow pit as every word drove the knife deeper. Julia said, "It's only 6 of us tonight. Clara and her husband can't make it. Doctor's appointment. Maybe we could do it at your place." Samantha's tone snapped firm. "No. I told you from the start, that's never happening here. Especially after the last party Scott showed up to. I love my husband. I'm not crossing that line in our house." "Fine," Julia replied, unbothered. "We'll use my place again. Come early if you can. I need help setting up." I killed the feed. For the next 2 hours, I sat frozen, barely breathing. Hit do not disturb on my work phone. Shut my cell off completely. I should have been enraged, screaming, smashing things, storming home to confront her. But I wasn't, not really. It felt like mourning someone who was still alive. Shock, numbness, regret. And damn it, Ellen had called this. Again. I muttered something about feeling sick to my boss and walked out. He didn't argue. I probably looked like a ghost, skin drained of color, body running on fumes. This must be what life support feels like. Every time I checked the clock, my stomach turned, imagining where she was, what she was doing, who she was with right then. I drove without aim or thought. Before I realized it, autopilot had carried me straight into our neighborhood. If I'd had any fight left, maybe I'd have torn straight over to Julia's house and blown it all apart. But what would that solve? A night in jail wouldn't give me closure. I parked in our driveway, stepped out, and just stood there, staring at the house I couldn't walk into. Next thing I knew, I was slouched in a chair at the town square, nursing a drink I barely remembered ordering. I'd arrived around 4. Now it had to be pushing 6:30. 4th beer in hand, I barely noticed the wheelchair rolling up beside me. "Sorry," I muttered. "Don't apologize," Ellen said calmly. "You've got nothing to be sorry for. Besides, after tonight, I owe you a beer." I forced myself toward the bar. "A cold bud for the lady," I said, handing it to her with a mock bow. "How much have you had?" she asked, one eyebrow raised. "Not that much," I lied. "Drowning yourself in alcohol won't make her innocent again," Ellen said, dry as ever. "I know." I exhaled hard. You'd think, after everything, nothing could shock me anymore. "She just fell in with the wrong people," Ellen said gently. "Not everyone here's swapping partners or sneaking around. Look at me. Nobody's even looked my way in years." I actually managed a weak smile. "She doesn't know you found out yet, does she?" Ellen asked. "No. But if she comes home and sees my car sitting unlocked in the driveway, she'll figure it out." "So what are you going to do?" I don't know, I admitted. It hasn't sunk in yet. The only thing rattling in my head is why. I already have a decent idea how long it's been going on. Promise me you won't do anything reckless, she said. You're not drunk enough to make bad choices. Keep it that way. And if you don't want to sleep at home, you can crash at my place. Just me and Fat Laura, my cat. There's a spare room. No sharing, though Laura might ignore that rule. I chuckled. Ellen had that gift, cutting the heaviness just enough for me to breathe. I don't know what I'll do yet, I said finally. Only thing I know, whatever we had, it's over. You realize she'll come looking for you here? Ellen warned. I'm not hiding, I told her. Not from her, but if she's smart, she won't say a word. By the time I finished my 5th beer, I considered grabbing another but forced myself to wait. For now, at least. Hey, she murmured, leaning closer. My offer still stands if you need a place to crash. A small scrap of paper slid across the counter, her handwriting scrawled with an address and a phone number. My daughter's staying with me for a couple weeks, she added, but we've got more than enough room. I was just about to respond, maybe even offer to buy her another drink, when I spotted someone barreling toward me. A woman, face hard with fury, eyes locked on mine. Ellen, I whispered, leaning in. I think that's my cue to call it a night. I motioned toward my wife, who was storming closer. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow, I added under my breath, assuming I make it out alive. Tried to play it off like a joke. It didn't land. Don't make it worse than it already is, she called after me. You hear me? Like I said, I shot back, rising from my stool. I've got plans for you. Scott, my wife barked the second she reached me. Where the hell have you been, and why is your phone dead? I stared at her, meeting her anger head on. Sweetheart, I said flatly, we need to talk, seriously. I walked out without waiting for her reply. She trailed close behind, spitting accusations, her words tumbling over each other as we cut through the dark streets toward home. Shut up, I finally snapped, spinning around to face her. Just shut up until we're inside. Please. The look she gave me could have frozen blood in my veins. The rest of the walk passed in silence. I had to move your car just to park mine, she muttered as we reached the front door. Once inside, she went straight to the kitchen, yanked open the fridge, poured herself a glass of wine, and sat at the table like a judge preparing to sentence me. Mister, she said, voice sharp, you've got some serious explaining to do. For a moment, I thought about cracking another beer. God knew I wanted one. But I'd had enough, more than enough, to say what needed saying. I steadied myself. I already know who it is, I started quietly. I know how long it's been going on. The only thing I want to hear now is why. And don't you dare tell me it's because you weren't happy. Her eyes flickered, confirmation enough. She knew I'd pieced it all together. She sipped her wine slowly. The silence stretched, unbearable. You'd have liked it, she said at last. Not because I stopped loving you. I didn't. God, I didn't. But if you'd been part of it, you might have liked it too. That's not an answer, I said, voice breaking. Why? You're the only man, well, one of only two, I've ever slept with. And don't think for a second I wasn't satisfied. You've always satisfied me, every time. But I got curious. You know what they say about curiosity and the cat. She swallowed, eyes fixed on the table. Scott, I'm sorry you found out. I knew it couldn't stay hidden forever. Everyone said you'd never figure it out. I told them they were wrong. Then why keep doing it? My voice was raw. You could have had fun too, she said softly. I've been a wife and a mother since I was 20. I never got to experiment, never got to be reckless. I've been loyal, better than most women you know. Do you have any idea how many of your friends have come on to me at parties? More than I can count. Their wives cheated and I stayed faithful, always. I guess I just got tired of being the good one. Her shoulders slumped as she went on. I haven't been with many men. And honestly, most of them don't measure up to you in bed. Not better, just different. I suppose you're into threesomes now, too? I spat, bitterness lacing every word. The question froze her. I don't know how you know that, she whispered. But, yes, once, with 2 men, Just once. It wasn't what you'd think. Too much chaos. But I needed to know. Then she met my eyes, calm, unflinching. I love you as much now as I did the day we got married. Maybe more. And if you're honest, you've benefited from what I've learned these past few months. I'm not that shy bride anymore. Nothing's changed between us. Not really. If you want me to stop, I will. If you want to try it yourself, I know women who wouldn't say no. It doesn't have to destroy us. God, I wished I'd taken that beer. My mouth was dry, my palms slick, anger burning just below my skin. Why couldn't you just leave me where I was? I rasped. When I was happy, when I didn't know. Scott, she said quietly, I'd never do that to you. I love you. Yeah, I muttered. Hate to see what you'd do if you didn't. A wife, in my mind, doesn't hand herself to whoever asks. Did you make Carter smile today? I asked suddenly, venom in my voice. He was really looking forward to seeing you at Julia's. She flinched. Scott, I still love you. I can't turn that off. And this? She gestured weakly, as if waving at ghosts. This was me sowing wild oats, that's all. It's not like I was going to get pregnant or anything. After everything you've done, Samantha, you realize you could have passed something to me by now, right? An STD, or maybe something even worse. The words came out harsher than I planned, but I couldn't stop. Those guys you were with, they weren't exactly picky. They'd sleep with anyone who offered. Can you seriously stand there and swear you didn't catch anything? I didn't wait for her answer. I'm getting tested first thing tomorrow. You should probably do the same. What cut deeper than the cheating itself was her attitude, how indifferent she seemed. There wasn't even a flicker of regret in her eyes. If I'd told her to stop, maybe she would have. Not because she thought it was wrong, but because I asked. Scott, what do we even do now? She whispered. I told you already, I replied, voice flat. I wanted to stay married. I loved you. At least I thought I did. But right now, I don't think I want this anymore. Some twisted part of me still cared about her, but the truth was impossible to ignore. She'd been lying to me for who knows how long. Our marriage, something I believed in, was now a hollow joke. And trust? That was gone, completely. I'll take the guest room tonight, I said. If you feel like having company over, go ahead. I won't stop you. She shot me a glare, insulted, but I wasn't done. Tomorrow isn't going to magically fix this, I added. At least now, we finally know where we stand. She started to speak, but I raised a hand to cut her off. No more lies, not tonight. I walked to the spare bedroom, shut the door behind me, and collapsed on the bed. Through the walls, I heard her crying, her voice low as she whispered into the phone, God knows to who, for hours. Eventually, exhaustion pulled me under, and I drifted into a restless sleep. When morning came, nothing had changed. The weight of it all was still there, crushing me. I dragged myself through a shower, scraped a razor across my face, and stumbled into work, looking like hell. My boss took one look at me and told me to go home. But I couldn't. Being away from Samantha was the only thing holding me together. Later, I started researching online. That's when reality really hit me. Florida's a 50-50 state. Everything, house, savings, retirement funds, all of it would be split evenly. I wanted to put my fist through a wall. I didn't even care about the house, but if she bought out my share, she'd drain what little savings we had left. And because I made more money, I'd owe her alimony. My 401k, half of it would be hers. No matter how I ran the numbers, I came up short. I was screwed. Completely screwed. That night, same as before, I headed straight to the town square. At least this time, Samantha wouldn't bother looking for me. Not right away. Well? Ellen blurted the second she spotted me. Don't leave me hanging. What happened last night? And don't skip the good parts. I handed her a cigarette, lit one for myself, and walked her through everything, blow by blow. Looked it up online? I muttered bitterly. Divorce is going to ruin me. I'm about to get flattened. Before Ellen could respond, a tall woman approached, setting a beer down in front of her. Not Laura this time. Scott, meet my daughter Chloe, Ellen said. She's in town for a couple weeks. Doesn't drink, loves to dance. Don't hold it against her. Chloe gave me a teasing smile. So you're the legendary Scott Morgan? From the way Mom described you, I was expecting some 8-foot Robert Redford who walks on water. I raised an eyebrow at Ellen. Relax, she said, smirking. I only told her you weren't an asshole like most guys. We all laughed. So you're staying here for 2 weeks? I asked Chloe. Then, turning to Ellen, did you leave anything out when you told her about me? Ellen pretended to think. Nope, that about covers it. What am I supposed to do? I joked. If I'm the only guy who can cheer her up? I glanced at Chloe. She always been like this? Chloe laughed. You have no idea. This is nothing compared to how she used to be. At least she doesn't smoke weed anymore. I stood up, offered Chloe my chair, and went to grab another. See, honey? Ellen called. Told you he was cute. A real catch. Mom, Chloe groaned. When are you going to stop trying to set me up? When you finally find a decent guy, Ellen replied. Or when I retire, whichever comes first. Well, ladies, I shot Ellen a playful grin, and I'm using that term loosely. What's the plan tonight? I'm getting drunk and listening to music, Ellen said without hesitation. Why don't you show my daughter around? She hasn't been here in years. Maybe convince her to eat something too. She's all skin and bones. Chloe and I exchanged a look. Guess that's an order, I said. You don't have to, she began, but I cut her off. I'd love to, I said. Haven't eaten today anyway. We wandered through the plaza together, past little cafes and shops. Somewhere nearby, soft music floated through the evening air, warm and inviting. I'm sorry about what happened between you and your wife. Had it been going on for a while? I looked at her, trying to figure out how to respond. Did your mom tell you much about me? Not really, she said with a shrug. Actually, she went out of her way to mention a few of the guys your wife entertained. I didn't know what emotion to feel, so I just shook my head. Pick your poison, I muttered after a beat. This place serves just about every type of food you can imagine. We finally settled on Italian. Once our meals arrived, the conversation shifted. Mostly I talked, filling in the gaps her mother had left out, explaining I was still working and planned to keep at it for the foreseeable future. Was your mom always this intense? I asked after a pause. Scott, believe it or not, this is her calm era, she said with a sly smile. When Dad was still alive, I must have called their divorce 10 times over. She thought for a moment, searching for the right words. Here's the easiest way to explain her. She's always been a free spirit. She smoked, she drank, she partied. But she was completely devoted to my dad until the day he died. If you looked at her, you'd assume she drifted from place to place without a plan. But that's exactly what she wanted people to think. The people who stayed close to her, lifelong friends, anyone who judged her, she'd go out of her way to humiliate them. She's actually pretty fond of you, she added, smirking. With a mother like that, I teased, raising an eyebrow, I'm guessing you were just as wild growing up. Are you kidding? She was stricter than any parent I knew. My curfew was earlier than everyone else's. She had to meet every guy I dated, and she'd flirt with them, test them. The moment one of them reacted the wrong way, he was out. You have to realize, my mom's gorgeous by anyone's standards. More than once, she slapped one of Dad's friends for stepping out of line. She acted like she had no boundaries, but believe me, she did. When Dad sold his business and we moved here, I was terrified. But once Mom took charge, I knew we'd be okay. She's strong, opinionated, unshakable. If she likes you, she's in your corner for life. If she doesn't, good luck. Dinner was phenomenal, the conversation effortless. Time disappeared before we even noticed. 2 hours later, we found her mother exactly where we'd left her, beer in hand, grin plastered across her face. Well, she said as soon as we walked in, did you two have a nice heart-to-heart about me, figuring out how to ship me off to a nursing home yet? Are you kidding? I laughed. We're just trying to find someone who can finally get you laid so you'll stop driving everyone crazy. Her daughter groaned, but her mom only grinned wider. See, I told you this one's different, always thinking about other people. She winked at me. So, Scott, when are you moving in? Ellen, I wouldn't want to intrude, especially now that your daughter's staying here, I said carefully. How many damn times do I have to say it? She snapped. There's a spare room. You wouldn't be in the way. Who else am I supposed to drink with? Those two can't hold their liquor. Then she gave me a pointed look. Besides, do you really want to spend the night with that whore of yours? Mom, her daughter hissed. What? I'm just being honest, and he knows it. If he wants to live with a tramp, that's his choice. Some men enjoy being humiliated by their wives. Not me, but hey, to each his own. Scott, I'm sorry, her daughter muttered, embarrassed. She's had too much to drink. She doesn't mean it. It's okay, I said quietly. She's only saying what I've been thinking all week. I stood, decision already made. Why don't I grab a few things and meet you at your place? I need a real night's sleep, and I'm sure as hell not getting it at my house. I told them I'd be back in an hour and headed toward home. Samantha would probably want another talk, but right now, I couldn't face her. I needed distance. I needed to figure out what came next. Where have you been? Samantha demanded the second I walked through the door. I've been worried sick. I was downtown, I said evenly, making arrangements. What kind of arrangements? Her voice was tight, brittle, the kind that decide where I'll be staying for the next few nights. Why can't you just stay here? She begged. We can talk about this, work through it. You still don't get it, do you? I snapped. I don't share, never have, never will. Do you honestly think I can just act like nothing happened? That I can walk into a room full of our so-called friends, knowing you've probably slept with half their husbands and God knows who else? I grabbed a bag and headed toward the bedroom. I need space, Samantha. Time to figure out what the hell I'm gonna do. Doesn't it matter to you that I still love you? She cried. Samantha, I said quietly. People who love each other don't sneak around and sleep with other people. Whatever you think love is, you've got it twisted. Scott, I can't do this anymore. I'm finished. I'm out. Oh, yeah? And how long is that supposed to last? My voice was sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. Until I can believe you again? Or until you find someone new to put through your little trials? Every shred of trust I'd ever had in her had disintegrated, hollowed out completely. She just stood there, lips pressed tight, eyes wide like she couldn't even form an excuse. You want to know what really twists the knife? I said, my words cutting like glass. I'm furious with you, absolutely raging. But I'm even angrier that everything I've worked for over 30 years is burning down with this mess. Angrier about losing that than losing you. What does that say about me? Somewhere along the line, I'd become someone I didn't recognize. Cold, detached, bitter, a bastard, plain and simple. I thought I'd want to destroy everyone involved. Her, the men, all of them. And maybe a part of me still did. But staring at her, lifeless and small in front of me, I realized she wasn't even worth the effort anymore. The house, though, the savings, everything I'd bled and sweated for, that was different. That was mine. That's probably why I didn't just walk out right then. I was stalling, trying to plan my next move. I'm leaving. A few days, maybe longer. I stuffed clothes into a suitcase. I need distance before I do something I can't take back. And keep your boyfriends out of my house, I added, venom in every word, unless you want me digging graves. And don't call me, not you, not any of the so-called friends we shared. I don't want to hear from a single one of you. God help me. I prayed the kids wouldn't call either. I couldn't bear telling them what their mother had turned into, an unrepentant cheat with no shame. I yanked the zipper closed, grabbed the bag, and headed for the door. When are you coming back? She whispered. Wrong question, I snapped. Try asking if I'm coming back. I hauled the suitcase to the car, threw it in, and drove. Thank God for the GPS. Without it, I never would have found Ellen's place. The whole area was a labyrinth of winding subdivisions and cul-de-sacs, each one fancier than the last. Even with directions, it took me over 30 minutes. Every neighborhood was gated, security stationed at every entrance. Ellen's was no different. I pulled up to the guard shack and gave my name. Before I could even mention who I was visiting, the barrier lifted. Clearly, Ellen had already cleared me. 3 lefts, a right, and at the dead end of a quiet cul-de-sac, there it was, her house, twice as big as mine and easily twice as nice. I grabbed my bag, climbed the front steps and rang the bell. Laura opened the door with a warm smile and ushered me inside. 2 seconds later, Ellen and Chloe appeared, greeting me like I was family. Ellen insisted on showing me around. The house was shaped like a massive horseshoe with a strange little tail stuck onto one end. The main spaces, the foyer, kitchen, and dining room, sat at the front. Ellen and Laura had the left wing, while the right wing wrapped around a shimmering pool. Weird layout, sure. Felt like the right side had been added later, maybe as an expansion, but it worked. She led me to my room, tucked away on the quiet right wing, perfect for privacy with a direct path to the pool. Chloe's room, I learned, sat on the far side, just beyond the water. "Scott," Ellen said matter-of-factly, "don't expect me to play maid. You know where the kitchen is. If you're up early, Laura will start the coffee. Bagels and other stuff are in the fridge. Write it down if you want something special. Dinner's at 6 sharp. If you're not eating, tell Laura so she doesn't cook extra. That's about it for rules. Oh, and you can make all the noise you want. By 10 o'clock, I'm dead to the world. Literally. And if I do die, make sure Laura doesn't ship me off to the wrong funeral home." She delivered it stone-faced. Laura just rolled her eyes, clearly used to her theatrics. We sat and talked for a while. Ellen wanted every ugly detail about Samantha and me. Nosy didn't even begin to describe her. Chloe, wine in hand, stayed mostly quiet, like she'd heard this performance before. Eventually, Laura appeared and said softly, "Bedtime, Ellen." "How many times have I told you not to sneak up on me like that?" Ellen barked. "Trying to give me a damn heart attack?" "No, ma'am, just helping you to bed," Laura said calmly. "Remember what I told Scott," Ellen muttered as Laura wheeled her down the hall. "If I'm dead in the morning, blame the maid." Once they were gone, Chloe smirked faintly. "Welcome to the circus," she said. "You have no idea what I've endured living here. After a while, it's like water off a duck's back. 90% of what she says is just theater, her way of spicing things up." Her half-smile turned knowing. "But for now, you're her new favorite act. Buckle up." I don't feel anything anymore. Over time, I've built up walls so thick that nothing seems able to pierce them. "Not even about your wife?" she asked quietly. I turned and shot her a hard look. "My bad," she muttered. "That was out of line. Guess I've been spending too much time with my mom." "Forget it," I said in a flat tone. "I'm past all that now. The truth? I think my wife just got bored with the simplicity of our life. She wanted chaos, adventure, anything that would feel like more than ordinary. The worst part isn't even what she did. It's that she doesn't feel the slightest bit sorry. Her only regret is that she got caught, not the betrayal itself." "Sounds exactly like my ex," she said bitterly. "He blamed all his affairs on me. Said I wasn't exciting enough, wouldn't indulge every crazy fantasy he had." I let out a humorless laugh. "My only regret is letting her plan every trip we ever took. I always wanted to go on a cruise, a whole week of doing nothing, being waited on, eating what I wanted. But she hated the idea of being stuck on a boat, so we flew everywhere instead. It was fun, sure, just not what I wanted." "You'd have loved a cruise," she murmured. "Too late," I said. "My ex ruined cruises for me. He used them as an excuse to sleep around. Still don't know why I stayed as long as I did." "My mom begged me to leave him," she admitted. "I must have heard it 20 times. In the end, she hired a private investigator, handed me the photos, 3 ongoing affairs, and that was it. I threw him out." "What did he say for himself?" I asked. She laughed bitterly. "Called me a cold fish in bed. How are you supposed to feel warm towards someone who dumps his last girlfriend and lines up his next one before you're even out the door?" By the time I got home that night, I was wiped out, hot, sweaty, my bags still packed. I muttered something about how Friday mornings always came too fast, apologized, and headed straight to my room. I unpacked my clothes, brushed my teeth, flossed. I was about to step into the shower when I remembered the pool outside. Why not? I turned off the lights, slipped out the door with nothing on, and eased into the water. Cool, silent, perfect. I floated on my back, swam a slow lap, drifted lazily to the edge. and glanced toward Chloe's window. She was about 55, but carried herself younger. Dark brown hair cut short in a way that was both practical and flattering. Her figure was still good, softer at the hips than Samantha's had been. Both women shared those blue-gray eyes, but Chloe's lips, full, lush, looked made for kissing. Maybe she'd had Botox. Hard to say. I swam another lap, climbed out dripping, and finally felt at ease. That night I slept like a stone. The next morning, I slipped out around 6:30. Everyone but Laura was still asleep. A note on the counter held the house keys and the gate latch key. Figured you'd need these. I waved to the guard as I pulled out and spent the next 8.5 hours doing the bare minimum to survive the day. On the way back, I thought about removing Samantha's name from my medical forms, from my 401k, from the life insurance beneficiary list. Maybe next week, I told myself. Even after I'd told her not to, Samantha left me a voicemail. She missed me. She still loved me. I erased it without listening twice. The gate squealed as it opened. I parked at Ellen's place, stepped inside, and the smell of real food hit me instantly. Not leftovers, not some note scribbled on a napkin. A real meal. Baked chicken, potatoes, green beans, salad. For dessert, chilled whipped watermelon with a shot of strong coffee. By 6:30, Ellen clapped her hands together and declared we were going to the town square. "You two take the other golf cart," she told Chloe and me. Laura helped Ellen into her wheelchair, loaded them both into another cart, and drove them out. It struck me, Laura did this almost every night, quietly, without a word of complaint. 5 minutes of Ellen's grumbling later, we followed behind. "You dance, Scott?" Chloe asked as we drove. "A little," I admitted. "Mostly slow songs. I like holding a beautiful woman, but country line dancing? No chance." She laughed. "So you can't even manage the grapevine?" I shot her a look. All right, I won't mention it again," she teased. When we parked, Ellen was already halfway through her first beer. She'd saved us 2 seats. "Can you believe it?" she griped. "Some idiot tried to take these chairs, told me I couldn't save them. I told him I'd kick his ass if he touched them. He left. Not happy, but he left." Then she jerked her chin toward the square. "There's your wife, with all her friends." If I hadn't known any better, I might have sworn she was intentionally putting her behavior on display right in front of you. I never thought she had it in her to be that bold. But by this point, nothing about her actions surprised me anymore. When the slow ballad began, I extended my hand toward Chloe. She looked momentarily startled, then glanced between me and Ellen before hesitantly rising to accept. We remained on our side of the dance floor, and I concentrated on not stepping on her toes. From her first graceful step, I knew I had nothing to worry about. Chloe clearly wasn't new to this. At times it almost felt like she was the one leading, guiding me effortlessly as we moved in rhythm. Did I ask Chloe to dance only because Samantha was nearby? Yes, and no. Yes, because Samantha's presence stirred something inside me I couldn't ignore. No, because part of me truly wanted to feel what it was like to hold Chloe close. It had been ages since I'd danced, or even held anyone, other than Samantha. When the song ended, we made our way back to the table. "You two looked good out there," Ellen remarked as we approached. "Scott, I thought you claimed you had 2 left feet. Not bad for an old man." Chloe giggled, and I couldn't be offended. She was only echoing what I'd said earlier about myself. We ended up dancing together for what seemed like most of the afternoon. I even found myself subtly maneuvering us closer to where Samantha's group stood. Samantha, for her part, seemed to be on the dance floor almost non-stop. At one point, Chloe leaned in close, her tone suddenly serious. "Scott, I don't like feeling like I'm being used. It makes me feel cheap. If you're only dancing with me to provoke your wife, please don't ask me again." I hesitated before answering, struggling to explain myself. "I guess I wanted to show her I'm holding it together, but honestly, I enjoy dancing with you, and believe it or not, you're not as thin as my wife." The words sounded wrong the moment they left my mouth, and I wished I could take them back. "Not as thin? Are you calling me fat?" she asked, half teasing but half serious. "Not at all," I said quickly. "I just meant I can hold you close without worrying I'll snap your ribs. With Samantha, I always felt like I had to be careful. Chloe sighed. You really need to work on complimenting women. Having good intentions is fine, but you've got to figure out the delivery. She wasn't wrong. Okay, she said with a smile. Let's try again. Why do you want to dance with me? Because you're an amazing dancer, I answered, and you move so effortlessly. Much better, she laughed. There might be hope for you yet. When we turned back to the dance floor, Ellen was already waving Laura over for another round. By 9 o'clock, we all headed home. Samantha had seen me dancing with Chloe several times that evening. For a brief moment, I thought she might approach me, but thankfully, she never did. Back at the house, Ellen bid us good night, and Laura tucked her in. Afterward, Laura asked me to check a few things around the house that needed fixing. I told her I'd have all of Saturday free to handle them. Chloe and I ended up talking late into the night, sharing stories about her younger days with Mom and Dad, chaotic, hilarious memories that had both of us laughing until our sides hurt. Eventually, we said goodnight, and I headed to my room. For the second night in a row, I stripped down and slipped into the cool pool water. On a warm night, nothing calms you like a swim. When Chloe's lights went out, I barely thought about it, until I realized her curtains were still open. Thankfully, the darkness cloaked me well enough that she couldn't possibly see me out there, bare as I was. I floated on my back for a while, swimming slow laps beneath the quiet night sky. 20 minutes later, I climbed out and went inside. Samantha had always said I lacked shame. Maybe she was right, but with the backyard so private, and only Chloe's and my rooms overlooking the pool, who was really going to see me? Saturday was relentless from morning until mid-afternoon. I fixed jammed doors, leveled crooked cabinets, cleared clogged drains in both the sink and the tub, swapped out broken sprinkler heads, and patched a leak under the kitchen sink. By 3 o'clock, I finally collapsed by the pool with a drink in hand. I knew there was a reason I kept you around, Ellen teased as she wheeled up beside me. I figured if you owned a house, you'd know how to fix things. And, as usual, I was right. Has no one done maintenance here in the last 10 years? I asked. I had a handyman once, she said, but he scammed me every month, said he fixed things he never touched. After I fired him, I only called someone when something actually broke. Well, tomorrow I'll run to Home Depot, grab supplies, and finish what's left, I told her. Ellen smiled, but her expression quickly turned serious. Scott, I want you to know I've already lined up a good attorney. He's been briefed on your situation and agreed to handle the paperwork pro bono, but he did suggest one thing you may not like. What's that? I asked. He said if you're worried about losing half of everything, the smartest move is to do nothing. Nothing? I repeated. That's right. Don't file, don't fight. Let her live her life while you live yours. Pull half the money from your joint accounts and hold on to your share of the house. Even if you're not living there, you still have a say in what happens with it. And if things ever shift suddenly, you'll have time to protect what you're earning now. It wasn't perfect. She wouldn't be getting what she wanted. Not unless you went back to her. But you won't, will you? Not a chance. Still, I needed to return long enough to grab the few things worth holding on to. Scott, that's still your property, the lawyer reminded me. You're free to come and go whenever you need. I liked the way that sounded. You could even stay there if you wanted, she continued. Skip the rent. Just take care of the house instead. What do you think? But Samantha wouldn't let this drag on forever. Eventually, she'd start pushing, either for me to come back or to make a decision one way or the other. I couldn't stay in limbo forever. Plenty of couples live apart for years before filing for divorce, I muttered to myself. While you're separated, what you earn is yours. You can do whatever you want with it. Let her live off her pension for a change. See how she likes that. The more I turned it over in my mind, the more it appealed to me. We didn't fight about it. We lifted our glasses instead, sealing the new arrangement with a quiet toast. Saturday night, I begged off from joining everyone at the square. I was tired. And if I was being honest, I didn't want to risk bumping into Samantha. Why don't you and Chloe grab dinner? I suggested. My treat. Call it a thank you for tonight. I thought the deal was free rent, she teased, grinning. That doesn't start until Monday. Take her to Anthony's. Put it on my tab. You've got a tab? I've been here 27 years, I said with a shrug. Most places trust me by now. Dinner's on me. Actually, I've got another spot in mind. Whatever you say, big spender, Ellen muttered, walking away. El Ranchero was small and unassuming. Best Tex-Mex in Florida, hands down. With a chilled bottle of sangria and good company, the weight of everything else faded for a while. We didn't dig into my past or hers. We stayed in the moment, and that was enough. You're not a bad guy, you know that? Chloe said out of nowhere. When Mom first mentioned you, I figured you were just some guy trying to take advantage of her. She can be tough, I admitted. But yeah, she trusts too easily sometimes. Trust me, nobody gets away with much around her, especially with Laura in the mix. After Dad passed, a few guys tried cozying up to her. One bailed on his own. The other, well, let's just say he was strongly encouraged to vanish. Pretty sure he's up north now, for health reasons. She laughed, and for a moment I wondered if I should be concerned. Relax, she said, smirking. You're harmless, but I did look you up, you know. After Mom mentioned your name again, I had to check. Where do you think she gets all that gossip? She, what, hires someone? Private investigator. Mom likes to be in the know. Keeps her out of trouble. I stared at Chloe, seeing her in a new light. So what else do you know about me? Everything that matters, she said simply. You actually care about people, and that's rare these days. Most folks look out for themselves first. But you're different. I forced a grin. Did the report mention which side of the bed I sleep on? She chuckled. No, but you're right-handed, so probably the right side. She wasn't wrong. Dinner ended with a bit of shopping, and then we headed back to her mother's place. At one point, our hands brushed. Instinctively, I pulled away. Samantha and I had always walked hand in hand. It was automatic, like breathing. Realizing that habit was gone hurt more than I expected. The following week, Chloe and I grew closer. Samantha kept her distance, and I was grateful for it. I was starting to savor the freedom. Ellen's lawyer had already drafted the divorce papers. They sat untouched in a file, waiting. When the time was right, I'd sign them. We still took Ellen to the square most evenings. I danced with Chloe, not to provoke Samantha, but because I wanted to. In my mind, Samantha and I were done. Even thinking about her now left me hollow. One night, I asked Chloe how long she'd been divorced, and if she was seeing anyone. She gave me a curious look, but didn't answer. Later, we wandered through the shops. This time, when our hands touched, neither of us pulled back. The drive home was quiet. Laura was glued to the TV when we walked in, which meant Ellen had gone to bed hours ago. We shared a look, brief, heavy with everything we weren't saying. Technically, I was still married, but after that phone call, after picturing Samantha with that white-haired man, whatever we'd once had was already gone. An emptiness gnawed at me, mourning the collapse of what we'd once been. The soft drone of the television filled the silence, but it couldn't quiet the thoughts racing through my head or lull me into sleep. Through the window, I saw that Chloe's light was dark. If it had been on, I probably would have wandered over, come up with some excuse, any excuse, to spend a few more minutes with her. The loneliness was crushing. After 36 years, I found myself completely alone, unsure where to go from here. I turned off the lights and drifted out to the pool. The night clung to me, dense, humid air thick enough to taste. Stepping into the water, I began pacing its length, letting the cool surface strip heat from my skin and noise from my mind. Still warm? Her voice cut through the quiet, startling me. Chloe stood at the edge, peering down with a faint smile. My thoughts scrambled for something, anything, to say. Perfect, I finally managed. I had almost forgotten how good it felt to swim on a night like this, heavy and stifling, water smooth as glass. Later everything shifted. Playfulness bled into something sharper, quieter, something neither of us named. Eventually, I slipped away first, heading toward the kitchen alone. It felt safer that way, less obvious. The next morning, Ellen asked, "Did you manage to sleep better?" "Much better," I answered, grabbing coffee and a cheese Danish from the counter. Laura flashed a grin. Want me to whip you up some breakfast? This'll do, I said, nodding toward the pastry. But thanks. Chloe walked in about 20 minutes later, radiating cheer. Her eyes flickered toward mine, pausing there just long enough for me to notice, before she bent to kiss Mom on the crown of her head. So, Mom, she said in mock ceremony, what kind of wild adventures do you have lined up for me today? That evening we dragged the grill out back, steaks, shrimp, onions, mushrooms. Scraping years of grease and rust off the old barbecue had taken nearly an hour. We discovered only afterward that no one had used it in more than 5 years. I joked about what else around here had been left to rot, suggested I might fix those too. Ellen shot back with a quip about meeting me later in my room, and the laughter rolled around the patio before fading into the night. The day blurred past. 6 hours spent between Home Depot and the house, swapping out air filters, compiling a running list of repairs. I asked Laura to flag anything else she noticed. That night we drifted toward the town square. Samantha was there, as usual. But this time she sought me out, motioning me aside. When are you coming home? That was her opener. Then, are you really going to divorce me over this? I'm not making any moves right now, I said carefully. I don't know where this ends. I just know I can't be around you, not like this. I feel cornered, like I got shoved into something I never wanted. And when you talk so casually about sowing oats, I wonder if there's even a way back. How long is this supposed to last? She asked. A week? A month? 5? You just want a timeline, I said flatly. So you can clear out the house before I show up? That's not fair. Fair? If I found out you were bringing people into our house, I'd sign the papers tomorrow. It's our house, Scott, both of ours. So what, parties on your half? I've never thrown parties in our home. Never would. I just need to know what you're doing. Are you staying with that old lady forever? That old lady, as you call her, is the one who clued me in about your little adventures. She gave me names, told me to watch my back. When your friends stopped looking me in the eye, everything finally clicked. She saw things I never wanted to believe. Samantha's face faltered. This wasn't playing out the way she'd hoped. I just need to know if there's still a chance, she whispered. There's always a chance, I said quietly. When I rejoined the group, Ellen asked, She wants you back? She just asked if there was still hope, I replied. Did she set a deadline? No, I told her I wasn't divorcing her, not yet. I said I needed time. Told you, Ellen said, nudging Laura. You thought he'd crawl right back, but I knew better. Chloe's eyes found mine, bright, teasing, alive. Chloe, I said, offering my hand. Care to dance? Let's show my wife I've actually improved. Truth was, I hadn't. I couldn't dance to save my life, except maybe during slow songs, but I tried anyway. Laura and Ellen doubled over when I stepped on Chloe's foot. She looked almost pleased when I finally called it a night. Did I think the night would end like the one before? No, but I couldn't pretend I wasn't hoping. I glanced at the clock and lingered in the doorway, waiting for Laura to finish settling Chloe's mother in for the night. My hand hovered over the switch to kill the light when a sharp knock broke the silence. I turned off the lamp and pulled the door open. Chloe all but burst inside. I'm not sleeping tonight, she announced, and then, for the next 2 hours, she didn't say another word. Evenings with Chloe were always charged like that, restless, heavy with unspoken thoughts. It struck me then, we only had 2 nights left together. Laura occasionally cast a careful eye toward us, though Ellen seemed completely unaware of the tension building between Chloe and me. On our last night, we begged for a trip to the town square. We wound up ordering pizza, opening a bottle of wine, and sitting by the pool under the stars, eating in quiet laughter. I learned the hard way that molten cheese can burn if you're careless, or if someone's trying to provoke you. I wish you weren't leaving, I murmured, sliding an arm around her shoulders. There's no choice, she replied softly. Work's waiting for me up north. My boss won't exactly understand if I tell him my boyfriend tied me up so I couldn't go. Fair point, I said, exhaling. When do I get to see you again? You could visit on a weekend, she said. I won't be back until Thanksgiving. We'll talk on the phone, do video calls on my laptop. That might be fun. She gave me a sly grin. You're kind of a dirty old man, you know that? You don't even know the half of it, I teased. Not until everyone else in the house was asleep anyway. By 8 the next morning, we were up, eating breakfast and figuring out her ride to the airport. Scott, can you drive Chloe? Ellen asked as she flipped pancakes and Laura set the table. Cabs are ridiculous, and they never show up on time. Sure, I said. I'm free today. Good. That's sorted. Ellen's eyes narrowed slightly. Your wife came looking for you last night? I told her you had a date. Shut her up real fast when she started whining. Ellen, let's not stir the pot, I muttered. Couldn't help myself, she shot back. I've watched her flirt with every guy in sight. Enough is enough. I shook my head, careful not to meet Chloe's eyes. Exactly, Ellen said. Let her know you've moved on. You're retired now. This is your life. I knew she was right, but it wasn't what I was thinking about. I packed the car while Chloe hugged my mom and Laura goodbye. She slipped an envelope into Laura's hand and held her tightly for a moment. The ride to the airport passed in near silence. I barely crept over the speed limit while trucks barreled past, horns blaring. You're going to get us killed, Chloe finally said. You realize that, right? I'm just being careful. Bullshit. You're stalling. We both know this is coming. Just get it over with. If I miss my flight, I'm stuck on the red eye, and I'm not suffering through that. Post-September 11th security rules meant I couldn't follow her past the checkpoint, so we said our goodbyes at the gate. I'm going to miss you like hell, I whispered, kissing her again and again, trying to make each one last. Don't let me hear about you flirting with old ladies or showing off your new dance moves, she teased. Mom and Laura will tell me everything. I kissed her one last time, harder, holding on to that moment until she pulled away. She gave me a final look, brushed her lips to mine, waved, and disappeared into the terminal. The drive back was hollow, quiet, endless. September bled into October, tough months. Samantha and I still talked now and then, but every conversation circled the same unspoken truth. We were finished. She wanted closure. I wasn't ready. By early November, I stopped pretending. I'm not coming back, I told her over dinner. Too much has happened. I'm past it now. Disappointed, but past it. Scott, she said, tears already brimming. I never meant to hurt you. I kept telling myself you'd come back, but deep down, I knew better. We had a good run, didn't we? Yeah, I murmured. We did. I hate that it's ending. Her voice cracked. Are you sure we can't try again? I swear I'll be faithful this time. It's too late, I said quietly. Back when we were dating, I was always wondering if you were with someone else. And Clara, Julia, too much damage, too little trust. That night, we closed the book for good. She wanted the house, so we agreed she'd buy me out. No arguments over alimony, retirement accounts, nothing. I kept her on my health plan through year's end and only asked for a few personal belongings. Leaving her everything else felt like my quiet victory. I walked away clean, not enemies, not friends, just done. After nearly 40 years, 38 good ones and 2 kids, there was no point in carrying the wreckage any further. Even after everything that had happened, a muted sorrow lingered inside me. It was as though something vital had simply ceased to exist that day, leaving a hollow space I couldn't fill. For nearly 2 weeks, Ellen and Laura kept their distance. Then, when they finally spoke, they made it plain. Sulking was not a luxury I was entitled to. The only true comfort I had left was Chloe. We spoke almost daily, sometimes over the phone, other times through email or those late-night chats that stretched into the small hours. Her work was unpredictable. Mine wasn't much better, but I clung to each day like a lifeline, counting them down until I could finally leave. The emptiness never lifted. For over 30 years I had belonged to a we. Now I had to learn how to live as just me, and the weight of that was almost unbearable. Chapter 3, A Fresh Start. The house hummed with restless anticipation as we waited for Chloe's return. The longer the hours dragged, the more jittery I became. By Wednesday, I couldn't stand it any longer. I left work early, drove straight to the place I still instinctively thought of as Ellen's house, though technically, it was now my home too. Pulling into the driveway, I pictured us heading to the airport later that evening to meet her flight. But when I walked through the front door, there she was already, standing in the living room, deep in conversation with her mother and Laura. For a moment I froze in place, my entire body locked up. I could do nothing but stare. Every instinct screamed to close the gap between us, to gather her into my arms and erase the 3 long months apart. "Hey, Scott," she said with that radiant, familiar smile. And just like that, everything was crystal clear. I loved her completely. No hesitation, no doubt. We had never spoken the actual word, love, but I knew, deep in my chest, she felt it too. "For heaven's sake, kiss her already," Ellen teased, grinning, "before you mope yourself to death." "Ugh, not this again," Laura muttered, rolling her eyes. "Last time, you two couldn't keep your hands off each other for a week straight." "At least now," Ellen added with a laugh, "we don't have to assign you separate bedrooms." Still rooted to the floor, I hadn't moved, but Chloe had no problem closing the distance for me. When our lips met, the world around us fell away. 2 full minutes passed before we finally pulled apart. "I'd tell you two to get a room," Laura deadpanned, "but I'm starving and dinner's almost ready. Wrap it up and meet us at the table." "Laura, go help set the table," Ellen ordered. "Give them a minute." "God, I missed you," I whispered into Chloe's hair. "Come on," she said with a smile, tugging me toward the dining room. "Mom's going to freak if we're late. We've got 4 nights to make up for everything." Hand in hand, we followed the smell of food and laughter into the dining room. "Calm yourself," Ellen teased. "You're acting exactly like I did with your father, and believe me, that's a memory I'd rather not relive." But in her smile, I saw everything I needed, her blessing, or at least something close enough to it. We barely left my room for the first few days. At the town square dance, I hardly let her out of my arms. I was still an abysmal dancer. There was no hiding that. But I was learning, step by awkward step, because she was worth every stumble. That first night, lying in bed together, I finally said it out loud. I was hopelessly, completely in love with her. When she didn't answer right away, my stomach knotted, but I'd always been the one willing to take the first leap. By morning, when I reached for her, the bed was empty. I found her already dressed, sitting at the breakfast table with her mom. "Sleep okay?" I asked, stepping into the room. Ellen's sharp look nearly made me blush. "I would have," I said with a smirk, "but your daughter kept me up most of the night." Chloe nearly spit out her coffee, laughing so hard she almost choked. "She really is her mother's daughter," Ellen muttered under her breath. Dinner that evening was nothing short of extraordinary. I deep-fried the turkey. Laura worked her magic on the side dishes. Chloe and her mom disappeared for a while to visit friends. By the time we all sat down, I ate so much I could barely breathe. Dessert had to wait until 8 o'clock because none of us could move. Dutch apple pie with cinnamon ice cream, plus a French mulberry tart, pure indulgence, every bite destined for my waistline. We survived on leftovers for 2 more days. Note to self, never prepare a 22-pound turkey for only 4 people. That Friday night, after the sweetest kind of exhaustion, Chloe's tone turned serious. "Scott, what are we doing here?" she asked quietly. "Where is this actually heading?" "I thought I'd been clear," I told her. "I love you. I love you. And I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I don't know how to say it any plainer." "You're in Florida," she reminded me softly. "I'm in New Jersey. I can't retire for years, until I'm 62. Long distance isn't easy. Can we really survive it?" "Chloe, I know it's going to be hard," I admitted. "But it'll be worth it. I love you." "Love is beautiful," she said, almost to herself. "But it fades. After a year or 2, that spark goes out. And if we only see each other once in a while, will we survive that? And where will we even live? With my mom forever?" She wasn't wrong. They were real questions, ones without easy answers. "Look," I said, "I've got savings, a good 401k. Add Social Security and we won't be living like royalty, but we'll be comfortable." "Do you plan on staying in New Jersey forever?" she asked. "Not a chance," I laughed. "Absolutely not. I was done with the endless stretch of winters, tired of the biting wind and gray skies. All I craved now was heat that seeped deep into my bones and the cool, shifting sand beneath my bare feet. Yet even standing in the warmth I'd longed for, unease crept in. Samantha was gone. The house we shared, gone too. Maybe this could be a fresh start. We could build something new here, buy a place by the ocean, even a condo if we wanted simplicity. More than anything, I wanted my future to be with her. There was no need to decide now, I told her. Just let us have a chance. She smiled, leaned forward, and kissed me gently. When she pulled away, I caught it, the hesitation in her eyes, as if she was already asking herself what came next. I noticed. I worried too. But in that single moment, I was certain of one thing. I wanted her. The rest of the weekend carried an unspoken tension. We stayed close, though our conversations occasionally brushed against rough edges. By the time we headed to the airport, the silence between us had softened, oddly calm, almost comforting. We kept glancing at each other, fingers interlaced the whole drive. But underneath, I felt a faint discord, humming low and constant. At the curb, I hauled her bags from the trunk, handed a tip to the porter, and folded her into one last embrace. "Chloe," I whispered, "I love you. Wholly, absolutely. I know it's fast, maybe overwhelming, but it feels right. Just think about it. I'm not asking for promises. Just think about us." She held my gaze, smiled faintly, and kissed me. Soft warmth to hold me over until the next call. Then she turned and walked toward the terminal. As the sliding doors sealed shut behind her, a chill rippled through me, the kind you feel when someone says they've walked across your grave. For the first time in years, I was terrified of losing someone I'd come to need. Ellen was waiting when I walked back inside, eyebrows raised in quiet question. That's when it hit me. This wasn't my home. It was hers. I was only a guest. Welcome, yes, but still a guest. "You're reading too much into what my daughter says," Ellen murmured, surprisingly gentle. "I've known her longer than you. She's just scared, that's all." I wanted to believe her, I really did, but I couldn't feel as sure as she seemed. Chloe would be back soon for vacation, and already I'd begun piecing together a plan in my head. The shift happened slowly, so gradual I barely noticed, until Laura had a family emergency and left for a few days. Only then did I realize why Ellen paid her so well. Laura had earned every cent. Ellen could be relentless, demanding, at times impossible. Meals felt emptier without Laura around. I found myself counting down the hours until her return. The night before she came back, Ellen and I went to hear music in the town square. Old 1950s tunes, nostalgia for a generation older than mine. Ellen was sipping a beer, chatting with someone nearby, when Samantha appeared out of nowhere. "Scott, hey," she said softly, hesitant, uncertain how I'd respond. "I'm fine. Can't you see that?" My voice came out sharper than I intended, anger flaring from nowhere. "Why do you even care?" I snapped. "Don't you have enough people to mess with, or are you here looking for more?" Her mouth fell open, stunned. "Go back to your friends," I spat. "Find someone else to toy with. Leave me out of it." The words grew louder, harsher, until I was nearly shouting. I didn't care who heard, and by then, everyone likely had. I'll never forget her face. Tears gathering in her eyes, nose running, her hands clamped over her mouth like she was holding herself together by sheer force. She didn't speak. She couldn't. "Just back off," I said, my voice cracking. She bolted, sobbing, one shoe slipping off as she fled across the square. The crowd stared, even Ellen. "What?" I shouted at them. "What would you say to your ex-wife, huh? 35 years together and now she's out there sleeping around like it means nothing?" Faces turned away, ashamed of witnessing what they'd just seen. "Well," Ellen muttered dryly, "that's the most excitement this town's seen all year." She gave me a look. "Come on, we should go. You've given them something to talk about." For the next 3 days, Ellen limited herself to a single beer each night. She stayed sharp, but quieter than usual, subdued. "You doing okay, Ellen?" I asked at last. "You seem different. "Just tired," she said quietly. "How are things with my daughter?" "Not great," I admitted, "but I think I'm starting to understand her." "Listen," Ellen said, leaning in. "She might come off rough sometimes, but you won't find anyone more caring or more honest. And I'm not just saying that because she's my daughter. She's different in the best way." Her grin flickered, the same wide smile I remembered from before. Thank God Laura finally returned, even if she was a day late. "How'd it go?" she asked the second she walked in. "Good, I think," I said, then paused. "And how the hell do you always know?" The question left my mouth before I even realized I'd spoken it. Days bled into one another, the monotony grinding me down. I couldn't deny it. When it came to cooking, Laura had me squarely outclassed. That first meal she prepared after coming back floored me. It reminded me of my mom's old roast beef dinners, though somehow hers tasted even richer. That night, I didn't bother heading out to listen to live music. A couple nights before, I'd managed to humiliate myself, and laying low for a while seemed like the only sensible option. Apparently, my anger at Chloe had spilled over onto Samantha, though Samantha had hardly been innocent in the matter. "You sure shook things up?" Laura teased, grinning as she guided Ellen's wheelchair through the doorway. "People are still buzzing about it, and I mean everyone. Right now, about 65% are on your side. Would have been even higher if you hadn't sounded so sharp about it. Most folks secretly agree with you, but they're too polite to say it. Well, until now." "What Laura's getting at," Ellen said, voice dry but amused, "is that you've been handling yourself just fine. Walking out on your cheating wife made you a bit of a folk hero around here. I'd wager a few couples who were already shaky are rethinking their vows after your little performance. Honestly, wouldn't shock me if more marriages start to wobble before the gossip dies down." "Well," Laura added with a smirk, "I hope this whole mess shook you up too. I was starting to miss the old Scott." By week's end, things felt lighter than I'd expected, especially for Ellen. Christmas had always been my favorite season, yet this year carried a bittersweet edge. My kids weren't thrilled when I told them I wouldn't be making the trip to Jacksonville for the holidays. Samantha would be there naturally, and I knew they wanted things to feel like the old days. But those days weren't coming back. They weren't exactly siding with their mom, but my daughter still wanted to know why I couldn't forgive Chloe after nearly 4 decades of marriage. When I flipped the question, asking how she'd feel if her husband cheated on her, she went silent. I'd already shipped everyone's gifts through UPS, making sure they'd arrive in time for Christmas morning. This would be my first Christmas alone, and I'd be lying if I said it didn't weigh on me. Even though Laura and Ellen had begun to feel almost like family, I still ached for my own kids. "Scott, can you pick Chloe up from the airport Wednesday?" Ellen asked while fussing with the artificial Christmas tree. "Traffic's going to be insane, and you'll just be sulking around here otherwise. And if you've got a craving for anything special for dinner, let Laura know. Personally, I'm leaning toward ham or goose, but I'm open." I mentally added yams and crescent rolls to the growing holiday menu. It was obvious Laura would spend most of Christmas Day chained to the kitchen, leaving me to keep Ellen, and now Chloe, entertained. When Chloe arrived, greeting her with a kiss lifted my spirits more than I expected, though it still didn't feel quite the same. We held hands, traded light conversation, and she teased me mercilessly during the drive back. After helping her get settled, I started mixing celebratory drinks. By the time she reappeared, dressed warmer, my mood had already begun to thaw. "Feels incredible to escape the snow," she said. "There's a solid foot of it back home, and the forecast says it'll drop to 30 by the end of the week. At this rate, I might stay another week." I handed out the glasses and raised mine. "To new friends and new beginnings," I said, tapping rims before sipping the eggnog. "Why not visit your mom?" she asked. "Because I promised Laura I'd help with dinner," I said. Then I turned toward Laura. "All right, how long's she been sick, and what's really going on?" Laura's eyes widened, startled, maybe even a little defensive. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't start with that. You know Ellen better than anyone. Some days she's fine, but other days, she's clearly not. I've seen her nurse a single beer all night, barely able to keep her eyes open past 8. That's not nothing. I want the truth. She's 88, Scott, Laura finally admitted with a sigh. Bad heart, high cholesterol, arthritis, but she's got the spirit of someone half her age. I figured you'd catch on, which is why I almost hired backup while I was gone. She's just tired, and it's getting worse. Her muscles cramp constantly. I've had to up her meds twice this year just to keep her comfortable. What are the doctors saying? They've got her on maintenance care. There's no fixing it, only managing the pain. And you'd better keep this between us. Ellen swears it's her business alone. If she thinks I've been talking, she'll fire me in a heartbeat, and she can't find out Chloe knows either. So Chloe's in the dark too? She knows her mom's aging, sure. I give her vague updates every week, but Ellen insists I keep the details from her. Unless something miraculous happens, she won't see 90. If I'd been feeling low before, that revelation sank me even deeper. Both my parents were long gone, and I'd hoped I wouldn't face that kind of grief again anytime soon. Clearly, fate had other plans. Dinner, as always, was exceptional. I joked that it turned out so well because I'd done most of the cooking myself. Laura rolled her eyes and everyone laughed. Afterward, I insisted she take a break while I cleared the table and tackled the mountain of dishes. Halfway through scrubbing, I cursed myself for not using paper plates. The dishwasher overflowed with pots, pans, and serving platters. Finally, I returned to the dining room with fresh coffee. Everyone leaned back in their chairs, belts loosened, buttons undone, blissfully full, content, and drowsy. Until then, I thought I was holding it together. By 8, Ellen was already nodding off. By 9, she was curled beneath her blankets. So, Chloe said once the house finally quieted, what's really going on with you? I exhaled slowly. This is the first holiday I've ever spent away from my family, I confessed. It really hit me yesterday. I drew her close, kissing her gently. Having you here makes it easier to bear. I'm sorry, she whispered. I remember my first Christmas after my breakup. My ex was awful, but that first year without him? Brutal. Her arms tightened around me, holding me close. What can I do? This, I murmured. Just stay here with me. That night we made love, not rushed, but soft and deliberate. It wasn't about passion so much as connection, about showing each other the depth of what we'd missed. There were still conversations we hadn't had, hard truths waiting for the right moment. I'd put them off until we could face them in person. Thursday morning, I told everyone I'd be out most of the day, claiming I needed to wrap up a Christmas delivery. Predictably, the three of them teased me for waiting until the last second to shop. None of them realized I'd chosen their gifts weeks earlier and had only just gone to retrieve them. I'd put real thought into each one. Ellen was the easiest. Music had always been her refuge, even if dancing was behind her now. I found her an iPod preloaded with 1,000 classics from her heyday. Knowing earbuds would drive her crazy, I splurged on a pair of Bose headphones. What I spent on her was nothing compared to what she'd given me these past 6 months. Laura required a different kind of gift. She was Laura through and through, and I mean that lovingly. Same hairstyle, same uniform, day after day. Caring for Ellen consumed nearly all her time. Little indulgences rarely crossed her mind. So I arranged 12 spa sessions for her. Massages, manicures, hair treatments, the works. She deserved so much more, but my budget only stretched so far. Most of what I saved went into Chloe's gift. Chloe was something else entirely. Beautiful, sharp, magnetic. She made every day lighter. But we had to move carefully, sneaking around her mom's house like teenagers, pretending nothing was going on. I was practically living there rent-free. How would Ellen feel if she knew I was in love with her daughter? Probably not great. Still, I doubted we were fooling anyone. Either she'd already guessed, or Laura had spilled the truth. I'd chosen the week of March 27th deliberately. Work would be slow, and after a brutal winter, Chloe would be craving sun. I booked round-trip tickets and a 7-day Caribbean cruise. With those tucked safely in an envelope, I stopped at a liquor store on the way home and picked up 2 bottles of wine. We always exchanged gifts on Christmas Eve, even after the kids were grown and everything else had changed. The tradition was simple: a late dinner, fire crackling in the hearth, soft music, and thoughtful presents. Nothing practical, no kitchen gadgets or household items, just things meant to delight: perfume, soaps, small luxuries. Samantha, back when things were different, always bought what she needed throughout the year. Christmas wasn't about needs. It was about surprising her with something she'd never buy for herself. I never cared much about my own gifts. What mattered was that spark in her eyes when she unwrapped hers. That look was worth more than anything money could buy. Dinner that night was modest: fresh salad, a vegetable casserole, stuffed chicken breasts, pecan pie baked in the oven, waiting for dessert once the gifts were opened. I felt like a kid again, restless, wired with anticipation, nearly bursting as everyone gathered in the living room. When all the presents were piled under the tree, I volunteered to play Santa, kneeling down to hand them out one by one. No one really knew what to get me, but they came close: chocolates, wine, exotic jams, mixed nuts, safe bets I genuinely appreciated. Laura's face lit up when she saw her gift. I could tell she'd never have treated herself like that. When I joked that one of her massages came courtesy of a tall, handsome masseur, she actually blushed. Ellen's present required a little demonstration. She wasn't much for gadgets, even though she handled computers well enough. I showed her how the iPod worked: playlists sorted by artist, album, and genre. When I slipped the headphones over her ears and queued up Elvis, her whole face transformed. I promised her a Bose docking station was already ordered, so she could charge it and play her music out loud whenever she wanted. She hugged me tight and kissed my cheek. Finally, it was Chloe's turn. I'd planned to save her surprise, maybe reveal it later, but I changed my mind at the last second. She opened the first envelope and found the plane ticket. Her smile warmed instantly. "A warm getaway sounds perfect," she said. Then I handed her the second envelope. Her brow furrowed in curiosity. She hadn't expected another. She glanced at me, hesitated, and carefully opened it. Inside was the cruise ticket. For a heartbeat, she was silent, staring, her expression unreadable. My chest tightened. Had I gotten it wrong? And then everything shifted. A faint curve tugged at her lips, and when her eyes lifted to meet mine, there was a quiet glimmer there. "What's going on with you, young lady?" her mother asked, her tone light but touched with curiosity. "It's nothing, really. Just tripped up a little," she replied, a playful grin sneaking onto her face as she silently mouthed, "Thank you." After we all exchanged thanks for the gifts, Laura slipped away into the kitchen to fetch dessert. Chloe lowered herself into the chair beside me. The secret kiss we'd stolen earlier lingered on my lips, sweeter than any dessert could be, though the pecan pie crowned with cold whipped cream came dangerously close. "There's another ticket in your room, isn't there?" she murmured, her gaze locking with mine. "Well, technically it's a double room," I said. "Figured you wouldn't want to stay in there all by yourself." "And let me guess, it's a double bed too?" "Of course," I chuckled. "Best part? It's on one of the upper decks. Huge balcony, ocean views. Hopefully you're not the seasick type." "You can look it up. There's even a full 360-degree tour online," I added. "Scott, the room doesn't matter," she said softly. "It's about who I'll be sharing it with." The pie was every bit as good as it looked, and the burgundy I paired with it wrapped the night up perfectly. While most people braved the chaos of post-Christmas sales, I had different plans, taking her to tour beach condos I'd been eyeing in Ormond and New Smyrna. "You're right," I told her as we drove. "It's about time I start figuring out where I want to be in the next few years." I laid out my thoughts, staying in Florida but moving closer to the water. The West Coast didn't have options like these, at least not at prices that made sense. We toured 3 two-bedroom condos, each stunning in its own way, but the reality hit fast: steep maintenance fees, hurricane insurance, coastal upkeep. Just those costs alone were higher than my current mortgage back at Temple Gardens. It was going to take some thought. "What do you think about the beach communities?" I asked. "We could buy one, rent it out as an investment until we're ready, or maybe even hunt for a small single-family house. I think I'd prefer that." It hit me that I'd been talking nonstop. "When are you thinking of moving out of your mom's place?" I asked. "No set date," she said. "Not until after the cruise. I want to help her get the house fixed up first, make it just right before I go. She loves having me there, and I don't want her thinking me leaving means I don't want to be around her. I really love your mom. The more I help, the easier it'll be on Laura too," she added. "I don't want you thinking I pressured you," I told her. "But you're right. My mom does adore you." I grinned. "Since I've got you here cornered, where do you think this is headed?" I waited, holding my breath for her answer. "The first time around I wasn't sure," she admitted. "Thanksgiving threw me off. It felt overwhelming. But now, I think I finally see where this is going." "We?" I repeated, smiling. "You, me, us," she said quietly. "Same thing." She hesitated, then added, "I just don't know how the long-distance part works. Florida to New Jersey isn't impossible, but it's still far. And what if someone else comes along? Some older, stunning woman sweeps you off your feet?" "Oh, really?" I teased. "Describe her." "Short brown hair, tall, a little beauty mark on her right cheek." "It's not a mole," she corrected when I smirked. "Fine, a beauty mark," I laughed. "Sweetest lips I've ever kissed. Does she sound familiar?" "You know love makes you blind, deaf, reckless, and maybe even stupid," she said with a grin. "Now, what was that other question you had for me?" she teased. The rest of the trip went smoothly, thankfully. New Year's Eve, I took everyone downtown to watch the festivities. When midnight struck, I kissed Ellen. She laughed and told me it was about time I left her daughter alone and found someone a little more experienced. I kissed Laura too, thanking her for everything she'd done for me over the last few months. When Chloe headed home, life slid back into something resembling normal. I started keeping a running list of things to fix around the house. Every time Laura spotted something that needed attention, I made sure it got done. As March drew closer and the cruise approached, Ellen came down with a stubborn cold that refused to break. After every local doctor failed to help, I took a day off work and drove her to a specialist in Orlando, Laura curled up asleep in my arms most of the way. The diagnosis, bronchitis. With medication and a nebulizer, she managed to stay on her feet. I bought an air purifier and extra space heater to make breathing easier in her room. When I suggested postponing the cruise, both Laura and Ellen shot the idea down immediately. "Go," Ellen insisted. "Have fun. A cough like this isn't going to kill me, don't you know? Only the good die young." "You two could use some time on your own." Whenever she stopped by, it somehow turned into the three of us together. I loved every minute, but they deserved space for just themselves. "Go on," I urged them. "Enjoy each other's company, I'll be fine." I added with a grin, "When you come back, I expect Chloe to be walking on her own 2 feet, no help needed." "You do realize she's in love with you, right?" That night I finally opened up to Ellen. There were things I'd kept to myself, but it felt like the right moment to share. "Laura," I said gently, "why don't you take a day for yourself? Go see your friends. I'll spend the day with Ellen." She didn't hesitate. The instant I suggested it, her eyes brightened and she agreed. I brewed tea for her instead of opening a beer, lit a small fire in the hearth, and pulled a chair up beside her wheelchair. "You know I love your daughter," I began softly. "Scott," she cut in with a half smile, half groan. "Do you think I'm oblivious? I've known from the start. I was the one who introduced you, remember?" "Fair point," I laughed quietly. "I guess it's no secret how much I care about her, maybe more than you even realize." I reached into my pocket and brought out a small box, flicking it open to show what I'd been hiding. "If her dad were still alive, I'd be asking him first. But it's just you and me now. And I think you understand what this means." Her eyes flicked to the ring. "It's tiny," she teased under her breath. I smirked. "Think she has any idea?" "Not a clue," I admitted. but I won't get a better chance than this." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Don't you dare get mushy on me," I whispered, my voice breaking into a laugh. "I always hoped you'd be around forever," she murmured. "Now you're about to bring another woman into the picture to steal you away." "Don't worry," I reassured her softly. "I'm not going anywhere." We ended up talking until almost 10 o'clock. She was happy for me, or maybe happy for all of us. Still, a worry lingered in my voice. "What if she says no?" I asked. "Then she's out of her mind," Ellen said firmly. "You're worth saying yes to, and if she hesitates, I'll line up 100 eligible widowers until she realizes what she's throwing away." Ellen had a way of getting what she wanted. Chapter 4. A New Union and Life Without Ellen. By 8 the next morning, Chloe showed up at the house, suitcases in hand. I'd stayed up most of the night packing, if you could call it packing. Basically, I shoved nearly everything I owned into one oversized bag. "And people say women overpack. Are you seriously carrying everything in there?" Chloe asked, laughing. "Everything but the Mustang," I joked. "We'll grab that on the way." I gave it a half-hearted lift before realizing it was a job for someone stronger, or at least someone with a luggage cart. Passport? Check. Driver's license? Check. A few bills and a single credit card? Check. I'd gone through the agency's checklist at least 10 times. The very last thing I packed was motion sickness tablets. No way I was risking it. We said our goodbyes. Ellen hugged me tightly and whispered, "Good luck," in my ear. A quick cab ride brought us to the warehouse, followed by a 3-hour drive to the port. Plenty of time to talk about the trip, to daydream about what lay ahead. It was my first cruise. I was buzzing with excitement. I kept all the important things, especially the ring, in a small backpack I refused to let out of my sight. Not until we were in our cabin and settled would I even think of letting it out of my hands. Even the express check-in dragged, and our luggage didn't show up until after muster, the mandatory drill explaining what to do in the unlikely event we needed to abandon ship. I couldn't help laughing to myself. We were headed for the tropics. What were the odds of an iceberg? Once the drill ended, I unpacked carefully, hanging shirts and stacking folded clothes neatly into drawers. Chloe, on the other hand, hung up 2 dresses and left the rest in her suitcase. "I live out of my bag," she said with a shrug. "I know where everything is, except for toiletries it stays in here." She was practical, experienced in her own way. We signed up for a few excursions, but mostly we just wanted time together. That afternoon we explored the ship, memorizing its decks before heading back to our cabin. "Let's go for a swim," Chloe suggested. At 54, she looked incredible, easily passing for 40. More than once I caught strangers staring, teenage boys, older men, anyone with a pulse. It got to the point where I hated leaving her side. Case in point. I left for the buffet to grab some fruit and soft drinks. When I came back, some guy was sitting in my lounger, chatting her up. Even with his eyes hidden behind tinted lenses, it was impossible to miss what had captured his attention. I froze mid-step, arms overloaded with plates, when their faces turned toward me in sudden recognition. "Sweetheart, you made it back. Scott, this is Don." "Don, this is Scott." Scott gave a crooked grin. "I'd shake your hand, but looks like yours are already spoken for." He rose slightly, glancing at Chloe. "Maybe I'll catch you later, Chloe." "Chloe," I murmured, barely looking away from her as I shifted the plates. "Let me help you with those." She stood, collecting the empty shot glasses with careful hands. From that moment on, I hardly let her out of my sight. That evening, dinner came later than usual. After we changed into something more relaxed, we wandered the open decks together until about 8, sea breeze tangling her hair as we passed crowds gathering near the dining hall. Within minutes, we found our assigned table and settled in. I ordered us cocktails and a bottle of wine to carry us through the meal. 3 other couples joined us not long after. John and Tracy, both somewhere in their 50s, introduced themselves first. Beside them were Linda, barely out of her teens, and her new husband Paul, their post-wedding glow radiating from across the table. The last pair arrived fashionably late. Kevin, mid-40s, and April, who couldn't have been older than 29, a pairing that silently announced itself as trophy wife without either of them saying a word. We traded introductions, realizing we hailed from every corner of the country, each of us living wildly different lives. When Chloe shyly confessed it was her very first cruise, the group jumped in with animated suggestions. Excursions she couldn't miss, secret corners of the ship worth finding. Each promised her one thing: she'd remember this trip forever. Dinner stretched long into the evening, the laughter and wine blending easily. Later, Chloe fumbled with the cabin door, struggling with the stubborn lock until a passing steward rushed to assist. My clumsy attempt to help ended with me sprawled flat on the floor, and that's when I noticed the sharp ache radiating up from my right ankle. The infirmary visit was quick but unwelcome, a mild sprain. "Stay off it for a couple of days," the ship's doctor advised, wrapping the ankle neatly. "2 pills, 3 times a day. Keep it elevated." He handed me a bottle of oversized white tablets that could have passed for aspirin. "Fantastic," I muttered as he tightened the bandage, standing hurt, but not enough to stop me. Chloe laughed, shaking her head. "I swear I can't take you anywhere. Guess you're officially on bed rest." "Not happening. First cruise or not, I'm making the most of this trip, even if it kills me." We skipped our usual walk along the deck that night, but we did venture to the ship's nightclub. I claimed a spot near the dance floor, propping my leg up on an extra chair while the bass thudded through the walls and colored lights flashed across the room. Conversation was impossible over the music, so we settled for people watching instead. When a few men asked Chloe to dance, she politely declined. "Go on," I encouraged. "I'll be fine." "You sure?" she asked, glancing at my ankle. "Positive. You love to dance. Don't worry about me. I'll be the happy cripple in the corner." I exaggerated a pout until she laughed and blew me a teasing kiss. "Maybe we should head back and have our own private dance," she whispered with a grin. "Plenty of time for that later," I replied. "Right now, go have fun." For the next couple of hours, she danced with anyone who asked. She never accepted a slow song, but when someone invited her into a salsa, she owned the floor, easily the most magnetic dancer in the room. We finally left close to 3 in the morning, Chloe glowing with exhilaration. "I can't remember the last time I had this much fun," she said, still catching her breath. Back in our cabin, we undressed and stepped onto the balcony, the warm ocean wind wrapping around us. I kissed her hand, whispered how perfect the night had been, then scooped her into my arms and carried her back inside. With the balcony door cracked open to the sound of the waves, we made love recklessly, then fell asleep tangled together. The next morning, breakfast wasn't in the dining hall. We chose the buffet on the Lido deck instead. Afterwards, the ship docked at Key West, and Chloe practically buzzed with excitement at the thought of shopping downtown. The streets teemed with tourists. After about an hour of wandering, pain began throbbing through my ankle again. "Babe," I admitted reluctantly, "I've got to head back before I push this too far." Disappointment flickered across her face. "Go ahead and shop," I insisted. "I'll meet you back on the ship." "You sure?" she asked for the second time. "I'm sure," I said, kissing her deeply. "Just don't blow our budget on souvenir junk." She laughed, and I limped my way back. What had taken 30 minutes earlier now dragged into almost an hour. By the time I reached the cabin, sweat soaked through my shirt and every step burned. I iced the ankle, propped it on a pillow, and downed 3 of those ridiculous pills. From the balcony, I watched the pier below, streams of passengers wandering back toward the ship, the view almost enough to dull the pain. By the time I spotted Chloe heading down the pier toward the ship, the clock had already crept past 4:30. She wasn't alone. 2 men walked with her. One I recognized immediately. Don, the guy I'd met earlier that day. The other was a stranger whose name I could only guess at. Don had already mentioned seeing Chloe around before, and from the grin plastered across his face, it was obvious he hadn't forgotten her. Chloe was lugging 4 massive bags stuffed with clothes, and for the next hour she proudly emptied them onto the bed, showing me every single piece. when she held up a tiny neon pink swimsuit, so small it looked like it could fit in my palm. I couldn't stop my mind from wandering. Whatever crossed my face must have given me away, because she smirked knowingly. "Relax," she teased, holding the bikini up to herself. "If you've got it, flaunt it. And if you don't, flaunt whatever you've got anyway." She explained she planned to wear that particular suit at a special tanning bed. My confusion must have shown because she laughed. "It's topless," she clarified. "Adults only. I'm going home without a single tan line this time. And don't worry, you're coming with me." An hour later, we were stretched out on that sun deck. Nothing between us and the ocean breeze but thin swimsuits and sunscreen. I rubbed lotion across my shoulders and legs, hitting spots that hadn't seen daylight in months. Every so often, my hands wandered farther south than they probably should have. Chloe just smiled and whispered, "Later." Everything felt perfect, until Dawn appeared again, this time with the other guy in tow. My mood soured instantly. Chloe leapt up, grinning wide. "You remember Dawn?" she said brightly, motioning toward him. "And this is Paul. Met them downtown earlier." Paul, shaded behind dark sunglasses, glanced at me. "How's the leg holding up, Scott?" "Much better," I lied with practiced ease. "Should be fine tomorrow." The two of them dropped into chairs beside Chloe, filling the air with non-stop chatter. Meanwhile, I sat there stewing as guy after guy wandered past, throwing appreciative looks her way. Finally, I cut in. "You're going to fry out here," I said flatly. "We should get you out of the sun before it wrecks the rest of the trip." "You're probably right," she admitted. "See you guys at the club tonight?" With that, she slipped her top over her head, said nothing more, and we left. Dinner that evening was incredible. Too incredible. We both ate far more than we should have. I limited myself to one glass of wine, especially after Chloe suggested walking off the meal on deck. My ankle throbbed with every step, but I popped 2 more painkillers and told her I was fine. By the time we reached the club, I was still limping, but I forced myself to ignore it. The place was packed wall to wall. We found a tiny table in the back, and I managed 3 dances in a row, first fast, then faster, and finally, a slow one. That last song did me in. The pounding in my ankle became unbearable. I stumbled back to our table, dripping sweat and breathing hard. That's when Don reappeared, this time without his sunglasses. Up close, he looked younger than I expected, maybe 40 at most. He asked Chloe to dance, and I, desperate for a break, told her to go for it. That was the last time I saw her at our table for nearly 2 hours. Not that I didn't see her at all. She was on the dance floor the entire time, spinning and laughing with Don, Paul, and 2 other guys I didn't recognize. At one point she waved in my direction, but after 3 slow songs and more than a few drinks on my end, I finally decided it was time to bring her back. I crossed the floor and found her mid-conversation with 2 strangers. She was holding a drink, definitely not her first. One guy's arm rested casually across her shoulders, while the group around her laughed and shouted over the music. "Honey," I said, eyeing the arm around her, "I think we should call it a night." The guy dropped his arm instantly. "But it's still early," Chloe protested, pouting. "I haven't danced this much in forever." "There's always tomorrow," I countered, extending my hand. She sighed, turned to her new friends and said, "Guess I'll see you guys tomorrow." They didn't look thrilled about it. Chloe stumbled slightly as we left, swaying to the beat of the music all the way back to our cabin. The second the door closed behind us, she nearly tackled me. "I want you so bad I can't stand it," she whispered, tugging her dress over her head, only to lose her balance and hit the floor. The shock must have sobered her instantly, because she slapped a hand over her mouth and bolted for the bathroom. A minute later came the unmistakable sound of dinner and every drink she'd had, coming right back up. I stepped out onto the balcony, giving her space to recover. 10 minutes later she emerged, eyes glazed and cheeks pale. "I think I overdid it," she admitted weakly. "Everyone kept buying me drinks. I must have lost count." I wanted to comfort her but swallowed my words. This romantic cruise was already veering far off course. Did we end up making love that night? Not a chance. 5 minutes later, she was out cold, snoring softly beside me. I went to bed praying tomorrow would be better. It wasn't. The next morning I slipped out while she slept and limped to the cafeteria for breakfast. Only one other passenger was there, a man accompanied by his trophy wife. He asked about my leg and I told him it was almost healed. "Taking it easy today," I said. "Should be back to normal by tomorrow." We ended up chatting about Key West and how his wife had single-handedly maxed out 2 credit cards, stimulating the local economy. I laughed and admitted she wasn't the only one. When everything wrapped up, I intended to head straight for my cabin. At least, that had been the plan. Instead, I spent the next hour and a half drifting aimlessly through the ship, combing every deck in search of her. I checked every spot she might have gone, the gym, the dining hall, even the crowded chaos of the Lido deck. But she was nowhere to be seen. Finally, I found her. She was sprawled out on a lounge chair, sun on her bare shoulders, laughing with her new companion, Dawn. The sight hit me like a fist to the chest. The anger I'd been holding back all morning boiled over before I could stop it. "I've been tearing this ship apart looking for you for 2 hours, I snapped. "You could have at least left a note saying where you were." "Well, when I woke up, you were gone," she fired back. "Did you leave me a note?" "No." "You were out cold when I left," I muttered, glad my sunglasses hid my eyes. Then, with a bitter glance toward Dawn, I added, "Looks like you didn't have much trouble finding yourself a new best friend on this giant boat." "What's that supposed to mean?" she shot back. "Forget it," I said, disgust bleeding into my tone. "Maybe I should go," Dawn murmured, shifting as if to stand. "No, don't go," Chloe said sharply. "Scott's just being an ass. Stay." "Yeah, Dawn, stay," I sneered. "If anyone's looking for me, I'll be somewhere else." With that, I stalked off. She yelled something after me, but I was already halfway down the stairs and couldn't hear a word. The ship thrummed with non-stop activity, dance lessons in the afternoons, art auctions that drew thick crowds, gambling workshops, poolside contests, and parties that seemed endless on the Lido deck. I eventually wound up in the gym, grinding away on a stationary bike despite my throbbing ankle. Staring at the endless stretch of ocean got dull fast, so I wandered into the dry sauna and later into the hot tub where 4 strangers were already soaking. The heat dulled the ache in my leg, but did nothing to ease the irritation simmering inside me toward Chloe. By 4 o'clock, I made it back to the cabin, still empty. She hadn't returned since that morning. I changed clothes and killed 2 hours at the art auction. Honestly, the prices people paid for glorified junk were unbelievable. Something about vacations must loosen wallets, but not mine. Just before 7, I headed back to the cabin and walked straight into a storm. "Where the hell have you been?" she yelled the second I opened the door. "I've been searching the entire ship for you." The irony didn't escape me. I'd said the same words hours earlier. "I was about to report you missing, maybe even overboard," she continued. "I hit the gym, grabbed some food, and spent the afternoon bouncing between gambling seminars and the auction," I replied flatly. "Why didn't you come back?" "Oh, I wouldn't dare ruin your perfect day," I added, letting my bitterness drip into every word. "You're seriously turning into an asshole," she snapped. "It's not my fault you tripped and wrecked your ankle. Can we just drop this and go eat?" We showered separately, got dressed in silence, walked to dinner with barely a handful of words between us. The dining room buzzed with talk about the next port and the excursions planned for tomorrow. We'd signed up for a guided tour of the ruins, and I'd been looking forward to it, until Dawn wandered over to our table. He leaned toward Chloe with a grin. "If Scott can't handle the walk, I'd be happy to show you the ruins myself." I nearly lost it. The guy had the nerve to hit on her right in front of me. "No need, Dawn," I said evenly. "My leg's fine. I'll take her myself." The look I gave him said everything I didn't back off. Later that night, we wound up, as usual, in one of the ship's 2 nightclubs. The same men Chloe had danced with before were gathered around a big table, and, Against my better judgment, she convinced me to join them. 2 drinks in, I was on the dance floor with her for more than half the songs. But when I stepped away to pay for a drink, one of the guys slid in and asked her to dance. "Why don't you find someone else?" I said flatly. Chloe's glare was ice. "I'd love to dance," she told him, loud enough for me to hear the message in it. The night dragged on. An hour later, another smiling guy approached her with the same question. This time, I didn't bother holding back. "Back off," I growled, loud enough for the whole table to hear. "Scott, what's wrong with you?" she snapped. "Why are you acting like this?" If she didn't know by now, nothing I said would fix it. Frustration boiled over. I pulled my cabin key from my pocket and slammed it into the guy's hand. "Here," I said loudly, voice dripping with venom. "Take my room key. Hell, keep it. Just wash it off when you're done." Gasps rippled around the table. "Have fun, everybody," I threw over my shoulder as I stalked toward the exit. "I'm done." I was halfway out the door when Chloe came tearing after me, her voice sharp with fury. "What the hell is your problem, Scott?" she shouted. "You're acting like my father." "No," I said, spinning to face her. "Not your father, but I was hoping, at the very least, to be your lover. Go back to whatever's keeping you entertained and just leave me be. Maybe this cruise was never the brilliant plan we thought it was. Stay here, I'll grab my stuff, then we can talk." "Talk about what exactly? Remember when you said your ex ruined every trip because he couldn't stop flirting with other women? I finally understand what that felt like." I kept walking while she called after me, demanding I stop. Her voice echoed down the hallway, but I didn't slow down. One heartbreak in a lifetime was enough. I wasn't about to sign up for another. I ended up at the bar outside the casino, ordered more drinks than I should have, and stayed put for longer than I care to admit. When I finally stumbled into the casino itself, I lost a couple $100 at the tables before throwing in the towel. The night only got worse. By the time I wound up on the upper deck, I had 2 more drinks in my hands and nothing on my mind but erasing the day. I'd been drinking for years, but I'd never blacked out. Until that night. When I finally came to, my skull felt like it was splitting in 2. My mouth was desert dry, my stomach lurched, and I didn't dare open my eyes at first. Someone had thrown a blanket over me, and that was the only comfort I could register. Eventually, I pried my eyelids open. No clue what time it was. All I knew was that I wasn't dead. Pain like this doesn't come with death. I forced myself upright, rubbed my face, and squinted at the nearest clock. 7:30, and that's when I saw her. She was asleep in the lounge chair beside me, wrapped in her own blanket. I stared at her, the fragments of last night slowly piecing themselves together. The things we'd said to each other replayed in my mind like an echo I couldn't turn off. My brain spun through my choices. Ask for another cabin, pack my bags and fly home, or survive the next 4 days of this cruise. That last one felt impossible. Before I could land on anything, she stirred and muttered, "Still breathing?" "Breathing, yeah," I croaked. "Standing? Barely. Hungover? Absolutely." "I waited in the room for you," she said, her voice sharp. "By midnight, I panicked. I called 2 stewards to help me find you. When we did, you were out cold. I thought, God, I thought you weren't even alive. They covered you up and told me you'd just passed out. Don't ever do that to me again. Got it?" "Why?" I mumbled. "Why?" she repeated, disbelief in her tone. "Yeah, why?" She stared at me, quiet for a beat. "Because I care about you," she said softly. "That's why." "Like, care about me the way someone cares about their pet?" I shot back, bitter. "If you think that's what I meant, you're still drunk," she snapped. "You're missing the point entirely." "Chloe," I asked, voice raw, "what are we?" She hesitated. "We used to be lovers," I went on. "I thought we were something more than that. But 3 days on this ship and I can't tell anymore. I've told you how I feel, more than once. If you don't feel the same, fine. Life's too short for me to chase after someone who doesn't want me back. Maybe we should just end this now, stay friends, and stop me from blowing up again like last night." "Are you sure you didn't hit your head when you twisted your ankle that first day?" she asked quietly. "I love you. How could you doubt that?" I'm not the kind of woman who jumps into bed with the first man she meets. You must know that by now. I do, I admitted. But lately, it feels like you've been keeping your distance. For them. Them? Your little entourage? Every night it's the same story. Remember how you felt when your ex flirted with women right in front of you? That's me now. You've had 4, maybe 5 guys orbiting you nonstop for 3 days. Don't tell me you haven't noticed. She let out a long sigh. Scott, there are 6 of them, and none of them are a threat to you. Don't treat me like I'm naive. I see the way they look at you. Her lips curved into a grin, amusement lighting her face. Then she laughed. I don't see what's funny, I muttered, irritation sparking again. Scott, she said between laughs. They're gay, all of them. Dance instructors, from Minneapolis, Denver, Newark. And those other 10 people you've seen them with, their partners, the guy who planned the whole trip? Trust me, he wasn't eyeing me. If anything, he was probably eyeing you. She dissolved into another fit of laughter. You should have seen their faces when you went off last night, she added, wiping tears from her eyes. I froze, torn between embarrassment and relief. Look, she said gently, I love you. I want us to work. I just don't know how we untangle this mess. But if you can let go of the anger for 5 minutes, I know exactly what we've been neglecting since we stepped on this damn ship. And I plan to fix that right now. We slipped past the crowds, heading back to our cabin. The rest of the day vanished behind a locked door. For the record, those showers, barely big enough for 1 person, let alone 2. The bathroom floor was soaked, towels everywhere, but neither of us cared. By the time we got dressed for dinner, we were half exhausted from laughing and completely out of clean towels. And that night, she wore a dress that left almost nothing to the imagination. Heads turned, every single one. As she walked past, every man seated in the dining room paused mid-conversation, their eyes following her. She leaned toward me, lips curved into a sly grin, and whispered something meant only for my ears. The words hit me like lightning, my chest tightened, heartbeat quickening, and I struggled to keep my face neutral. The meal itself was flawless, as usual. Rich flavors, warm laughter, and lively chatter filling the air. Yet, as dessert drew near, my thoughts drifted back to the real purpose of this evening. While she turned to speak with the woman beside her, I quietly placed a small velvet ring box on the empty plate in front of her. To my quiet horror, when she turned back, Chloe didn't notice the box immediately, though nearly everyone else at the table did. I stayed still, feigning calm, while anticipation coiled tight inside me. Finally, as servers returned with dessert, her gaze dropped to the plate. The moment her eyes landed on the box, she gasped. She flipped it open, and a joyous cry escaped her lips before she threw her arms around me. She kissed me hard, and I lifted her off the floor, dropping to one knee in front of the entire room. Her eyes glistened with tears as I asked the only question that mattered. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes, she shouted. The dining room erupted. Applause, cheers, strangers calling out congratulations. Champagne appeared out of nowhere, and the celebration carried on late into the night. Chloe couldn't stop admiring the ring. White gold, just over 3/4 of a carat, framed by slim baguette diamonds on each side. Later, as we strolled past the ship's club, she asked me to wait outside for a minute. Moments later, 6 rowdy men burst through the door, laughing, shaking my hand, shouting, "Man, you're lucky!" I laughed too, apologizing for my earlier outburst, and by the time we parted, we were all friends. That night, Chloe and I stayed up talking until sunrise, reminiscing about how we'd gotten here, imagining what was ahead. We didn't have answers for everything, but it felt right. The next morning, we skipped breakfast and wandered to the Lido deck in shorts and flip-flops. Even tucked into a quiet corner booth, we couldn't escape the flow of well-wishers stopping to congratulate us. Half teasing, I told her we should quit our jobs and live on love alone. She laughed, shaking her head. Maybe in our 20s, she said softly, but now, life's a bit more complicated. Still, we agreed on one thing. We wanted a home by the beach. Something modest, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and a spacious terrace sounded ideal to me. Chloe, however, insisted on adding a screened-in pool and a hot tub. She laughed, recalling how her mother had predicted this moment long before the cruise. "That's Ellen for you," I said. "She always gets what she wants." Chloe squeezed my hand and whispered, "Guess I'm like her." In that moment, I realized I'd finally gotten exactly what I wanted too. That night at dinner, we were still the center of attention. Even the ship's captain stopped by to offer congratulations. When dessert came, the staff surprised us with a cake etched with our names. The flavor was unforgettable, soft, rich, perfect. We shared the leftovers with the table beside us, prompting one couple to joke that they'd renew their vows if it came with another cake like that. The final 2 days passed in a blur of closeness and celebration. Chloe's flight home was the morning after we docked. I was due at work Monday. Neither of us wanted to think about the goodbye. When we finally disembarked, we didn't let go of each other's hands. We drove straight to Ellen's house, arriving a little after 1 in the afternoon. She and Laura were already in the living room, waiting and chatting. "So, how was it?" they asked. Chloe burst out laughing. "We broke up," she teased, then immediately thrust out her hand to show them the ring. Laura just smiled knowingly. We ate a light lunch. After the cruise's indulgence, I knew I needed to start cutting back. Chloe recounted the highlights of the trip, including my awkward run-in with her new friends. "Scott, I'm shocked you didn't lose your temper," Ellen exclaimed. "My husband would have." She laughed, shaking her head. "So, when's the wedding?" Chloe and I exchanged glances. "That's the million-dollar question," I said. "We haven't even figured out where we're living yet, let alone the ceremony." Ellen sighed dramatically. "Well, I'm not getting any younger. Don't you dare wait until I'm gone to get married." I couldn't figure out what all the commotion was about. It's not like we were inviting the entire county. Scott's kids and a handful of close friends, plus your side of the family, that was it. 50 guests at most. And honestly, we could just do it at home if that's what you wanted. That idea stuck. Simple, no nonsense, and weirdly enough, perfect. Why not do it this weekend? Celebrate now, honeymoon later. The cruise wasn't happening anyway, but that didn't matter. No one, straight, gay, or otherwise, was going to come between me and my bride this time. That night, lying in bed, we whispered plans into the dark. By breakfast, we knew exactly what we were doing. "Easter weekend," Chloe announced. "Good Friday's already a holiday for us. We get married Saturday. Everyone's free, honeymoon in June." And just like that, the date was locked. Everything kicked into overdrive. Ellen lit up like fireworks. She and Chloe pulled Laura into the chaos, and the 3 of them dove headfirst into planning. I stayed out of the way, letting Chloe and her mom take charge. The kids were thrilled when I told them, though naturally they'd be staying with my mom, who wasn't invited. Within weeks, every detail was ironed out. Food, cake, music, officiant, even a bartender, all set. Marriage license in hand, all we had to do was wait. After the cruise, I'd gotten used to waking up next to Chloe every day. Video calls helped, sure, but they didn't come close to the real thing. 3 weekends later, I couldn't stand it anymore. I drove over after work and surprised her. We spent the whole weekend wrapped up in each other, laughing, eating bad pizza, drinking cheap wine and beer, blissfully happy. The days leading to the wedding felt endless. Ellen, meanwhile, was back in full force, sharp-tongued, loud, unstoppable. We were in the town square one afternoon when she proudly announced to anyone who'd listen that her daughter was marrying the best-looking man on 2 legs. Samantha never congratulated me, not once, and I didn't have to ask why. As the date drew closer, Ellen started looking run down. I worried she was wearing herself thin. She swore she'd never felt more alive. "What can I do?" I asked Laura one evening. "I don't want this wedding to be the thing that kills her, you understand?" "Scott, relax," Laura said. "It's all under control. Everything's set. All anyone needs to do now is show up. She's tired, yeah, but that's just where she's at. Doctors have done all they can. She naps most afternoons. I let her. She needs the rest, even if she fights me about it. Laura's voice softened. She says she'll have plenty of time to rest once she's gone. I promised myself I'd talk to her that night. Mom, you're looking worn out, I said at dinner. You sure you're okay? Don't you worry about me, she shot back. I can still run circles around you, and don't even think about challenging me at the bar. You're sure? Damn sure. I've got a wedding to throw, and I'm not planning on dying on you. I wanted to believe her. Saturday night, she yelled across the room. What's that swill next to the beer? Tastes like warm rabbit piss. Ellen, you know what rabbit piss tastes like? Hell yes, I do. And that's exactly what it tastes like. Now pour me an O'Doul's and grab me my bud. I did as I was told, but only poured her one. She wasn't thrilled about the rationing. The wedding day came with a light drizzle. I wore a plain suit, no tuxedo. Chloe glowed in a floor-length almond dress. When we said I do, the rest of the world disappeared. The reception was flawless. We snapped enough photos to fill an album, memories we'd treasure forever. Chloe's mom was in plenty of them, and we got one perfect shot of just Chloe and me for the mantle. My kids welcomed her instantly, folding her into the family without hesitation. Laura hovered near Ellen, watching her carefully. I danced with Ellen while she sat in her stroller, tears streaming down her face as she whispered that she was so happy, that now she could die a happy woman. We laughed, told her she'd probably outlive us both. But when I met Laura's eyes, I knew better. Later, I mentioned I was apartment hunting. Ellen nearly had a heart attack. What? You're gonna knock up my daughter and then move out? Chloe's a bit old for that, don't you think? Besides, I've been here long enough. You're family now, damn it. Who else am I supposed to raise hell with? Laura, she's a lightweight. No, you're staying put. End of discussion. I called Chloe. Scott, if she's telling you to stay, why not just stay? At least for a little bit, Mom urged, leaning on Laura's earlier argument to reinforce her own. Laura says you've been acting like some love-drunk teenager ever since that cruise. Can't say I blame you. She wasn't wrong, and I didn't have the energy to deny it. I've already got a realtor checking out properties near the water, I told her. Either beachfront or within a block or so. I gave her a 50-mile radius to work with. She's supposed to send over photos if anything decent pops up. I miss you, I admitted quietly. I miss you too, she answered. But this won't be forever. Distance is supposed to make you miss each other more, right? Not in my case, I muttered. She laughed softly. Go cool off with a cold shower. Or, I suggested, lowering my voice, we could make another video? You know what I mean. You're impossible, she giggled. One taste and now you're hooked. Only if you let me be, I teased. Maybe this weekend, she said, if you behave. I was counting the days already. 2 weeks later, I was back in Orlando with Ellen and Laura for follow-up appointments with her specialists. She has to slow down, the doctor told us firmly, his voice low but unyielding. If she keeps this pace, we'll have to admit her. Her blood sugar is climbing, and she's lost 2 pounds since her last checkup. She needs fewer beers, more meals. Clearly, he'd never met Ellen. A quiet cup of green tea after dinner? Not her style. What she wanted was a Budweiser. Mom, if you don't put some weight back on and get your sugar under control, they're going to stick you in a hospital bed, I warned. Is that what you want? To hell with them, she snapped. I'm not aiming to live forever, but I'll be damned if I spend what time I've got left choking down oatmeal and sipping fancy leaf water. Now get me a beer. I poured her half a Bud Light. Chloe flew in a few days later to look at the 2 properties the realtor had found. Neither was right. We updated the search, changed our criteria. She even admitted she'd be okay with a townhouse if it came to that. But nothing felt like home yet. Still, we squeezed every moment out of her short trip. 2 days felt like a week, and she left exhausted but smiling. By then, summer's suffocating heat had started to fade, and so had Ellen's strength. I kept Chloe updated every day, and even Laura, though she tried to act calm, was clearly growing more anxious. After a few tense family arguments, the doctors admitted Ellen for monitoring. Her weight kept dropping. Her appetite nearly vanished. When they placed a feeding tube, she looked ready to rip it out herself. Thursday night, around 9. I sat beside her bed, flipping absent-mindedly through a car magazine, thinking she was asleep. Then I felt her hand, thin, frail, settle on my arm. "I told you I had plans for you," she whispered, wearing a sly grin. "But you never believed me, did you?" "You might not see it," she continued, voice soft but sure. "But a mother always knows. You too, you're something special, and for the first time, I see you happy." "I guess I owe you for that," I murmured. "Now," she smirked, "get some sleep before one of these nurses decides to pump me full of sedatives." "How about I pour you a bud instead?" I offered. We shared a smile. I kissed her forehead and whispered, "I'm not going anywhere. I'll be right here when you wake up." Her fingers tightened weakly around mine before her eyes drifted closed. The next morning, I couldn't bring myself to call right away. My eyes were still swollen from the night before, and Laura had been at the hospital all night. She was running on fumes. I called a friend to drive her home so she could rest. When I finally dialed Chloe, she answered bright and cheerful. "Hi, kids. Thinking about me?" "Always," I said. "Believe me, I was definitely thinking about you last night." "Yeah? Burned through 2 batteries over here," she teased. It would have been easier to say anything else, but I forced the words out. "Honey, your mom passed away last night." The sound of the phone clattering hit my ear, followed by muffled sobs, silence. Then, broken words. "How? When?" "She went peacefully," I said gently. "In her sleep. No pain. We talked for a while, and when I told her to rest, she just never woke up." "Your ticket's waiting at the southeastern counter," I added. "Earliest flight is at 2. Please, take a cab. Don't drive. I'll meet you when you land." We spoke a few more minutes before she hung up to start packing. I called her every hour until she boarded. When she finally ran into my arms at the airport, her makeup streaked by tears, none of us were shocked it had happened. But that didn't make it any easier. She clung to me, her sobs shaking both of us, and I forced myself to stay steady, even though inside I felt hollow and breaking apart. I handed her a handkerchief, and we rode back to the house in silence, the quiet in the car heavier than words. Ellen had thought of everything beforehand, preparing her own funeral down to the smallest detail, almost as if she had known how hard the news would hit. By 9 o'clock the next morning, the funeral home arrived to take her away. We were told Chloe could see her mother the next day, though we'd need to call ahead before coming. Laura showed me what Ellen had left for her, a thick manila envelope containing every instruction and arrangement she'd made, just in case. The casket, the burial plot, even the obituary had been chosen long ago. Only one thing remained unopened, a heavy envelope with Chloe's name scrawled across it in bold letters. We picked at the food Laura had saved in the fridge, though none of us had much appetite. I poured myself 2 glasses of wine, and Chloe drained what remained in the bottle without a word. Over and over, I repeated Ellen's last words to her, and each time Chloe broke down, mourning the loss of her mother with fresh tears. Later that night, I tucked my wife into bed and sat alone by the fire, wine in hand, staring into the flames until my eyes stung. The days ahead would be frantic, but once the rush passed, the reality of living without Ellen would strike even harder. I already missed her, her dry humor, her stubborn streak, the way she could make me laugh in the middle of an argument or embarrass me in public just to see me blush. My thoughts drifted to Laura. With Ellen gone, she had no job and no home. I knew I needed to talk to Chloe. There was no way I would let Laura end up on the street. She had lived with Ellen for more than 10 years, loving her like a second mother. When I finally blinked, morning light filled the room. Chloe stood quietly in front of me. "You were up all night?" she asked softly. "You'll crash later." "Are you managing at all?" I asked her. "No," she said honestly. "And I doubt I will for a while. But Mom's finally at peace. I never thought about what life would be like without her. I just always assumed she'd be here. Now I feel guilty for not visiting more, for not being kinder when I had the chance." I cupped her face in my hands and kissed her forehead gently. "She adored you," I whispered. "You were everything to her. Don't torture yourself with regrets. Be grateful for the time you did have. We leaned our foreheads together. She told me she loved me and promised we would get through this grief side by side. I carried her back to bed. The wake drew more people than anyone could have predicted. The rooms overflowed with mourners, and the funeral home extended visiting hours so everyone could say goodbye. They came in cars, buses, even limousines. Some shuffled in on walkers, others rolled up in wheelchairs. I recognized several faces from the previous night's vigil. Every single one spoke of how deeply Ellen's absence would be felt. A few women, tears shining in their eyes, congratulated me on the marriage and told me how proud Ellen had been of Chloe. Many hadn't seen her mother since she'd moved to Florida, but they remembered her vividly, her energy, her striking beauty, her sharp tongue. During the service, not a single person kept dry eyes. When the formalities ended, Chloe asked for a few quiet minutes alone with her mother. Standing beside her and Laura, we whispered our last goodbyes. Chloe touched her mother's face, kissed her forehead, and slipped a folded letter into her hands. The funeral director closed the casket softly and led it to the waiting limousine. The ride to the cemetery was silent. Chloe didn't watch as the casket was lowered, but she stood still, holding herself with quiet strength. When it was over, we dropped Laura at her home and drove aimlessly for hours, speaking little. Chloe said she wanted to return to the cemetery in a few days, once she felt ready, to say goodbye properly. Back in Temple Gardens, we tried to have dinner at a restaurant near the square. But after the 10th person came to offer condolences, we left. I found a quiet little spot off the main road where we could finally eat in peace. After dinner, we drove without direction and ended up at a secluded beachside motel. We walked barefoot along the shoreline, sat in the sand, and listened to the waves until midnight. There was a hollow space in her I couldn't fill, though I tried. Only time would soften it. The next morning, I let her sleep in, went to a roadside cafe, and brought breakfast back to the room. She hadn't eaten in days. I hoped this morning she might manage a few bites. "Good morning, Mrs. Morgan," I said, kissing her nose. "I slaved over this breakfast for hours, so you have to at least try it." "I made coffee and bagels," I added as she fried bacon. For the first time in days, she seemed almost hungry, a good sign. "Scott," she murmured, "I want to visit Mom's grave after we eat. Is that okay?" "Of course," I said. "And maybe afterward we can stop by the storage unit, grab my Mustang, and take it out for a ride. I might even let you drive." She rolled her eyes. "Why don't you just keep it at the house instead of locking it away every other month? That car was meant to be driven. If it were mine, I'd take it to work every day." "Kid, it's a classic," I said with a small grin. "I don't want to rack up miles on it. Someday it's going to be worth a fortune." Unless it had already racked up thousands of miles, I figured it would hold up just fine. I said it out loud, though I could see she wasn't really paying attention. She only gave me a faint smile and murmured, "If you say so." At the cemetery, the tears came without restraint. The soil was still wet, heavy with yesterday's storm, and it felt like the weight in our chests would linger for what seemed like forever. I pulled her into my arms, whispered that I loved her more than I could ever express, and swore I'd do everything I could to help her find herself again. "You really love me, don't you?" she asked softly. "This isn't just lust, or some way to fill the emptiness your ex-wife left behind. You love me. Me. Do you remember what the vows say? In sickness and in health, till death do us part," I replied. I meant every single word. Then I kissed her, tasting salt on her lips. She clung to me, smiling through the tears, and in that moment, the last flickers of doubt, hers or mine, finally disappeared. "Mom was crazy about you, you know," she said later, steering my Mustang back from the cemetery. I kept my eyes on the road ahead, jaw tightening slightly, until we pulled into the driveway 10 minutes later and picked up the conversation again in the bedroom. "As I was saying," she continued, slipping into more comfortable clothes, "Mom really loved you." "I know," I answered quietly, "and I loved her too." "No, you don't get it. She absolutely adored you. In her eyes, you could do no wrong. She swore you were the most devoted man she'd ever known, next to my dad. And that's saying something." I thought back to those first awkward meetings with her mother. Aside from the occasional beer and casual small talk, we hadn't shared much at the time. She told me that once she found out about your wife's affair, she immediately started planning to set us up, she said. When did she come up with that brilliant scheme? I asked. Somewhere between you leaving your wife and her arranging that trip for me to visit here. That sneaky woman, I muttered, smirking a little. She probably even mapped out which rooms we'd stay in, didn't she? She did. She knew I loved night swimming, and she knew you did too, though I doubt she realized you were into doing it in the cafeteria pool. Disappointed? I teased. Not even close, she replied, squeezing my hand. You never mentioned telling her about proposing on the cruise, she added. That was just between her and me, I admitted. I figured she deserved to know first. You were her only daughter. I wanted to honor that. Well, that must have sealed it for her, she said with a laugh. Did she also threaten you with her secret army of widows if you didn't propose? I told her the same thing I'm telling you now, I grinned. Not happening. You're mine. I don't share. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that. I don't know what your mom arranged for Laura, I said softly, but I want to do something for her too. I've got some money saved. I'd like to set aside a little fund for her. She wasn't just a caregiver. She genuinely loved your mom. I don't want to overstep, but it feels right. Mom was right about you, she whispered. You're good. That's what she saw. The way you care, the way you'd reach into your own pocket for someone you barely knew a year ago. You're different. So, what do you think? I asked. She won't be rich, but she won't have to work for anyone unless she wants to. You don't have to worry, she said after a pause. Mom already took care of Laura. She's set for life. Mr. Morgan, she murmured with a playful smirk. Did I ever tell you how much I love you? Not nearly enough, I said, but I'll work on you until you do. Her voice softened into something serious. Now comes the hard part. Us. And before you say anything, just listen. I have this crazy idea. I stayed quiet, waiting as she drew in a breath. If I combine half my house's value, my pension, and what I'll get at 62, I was thinking. Maybe I quit work at 62 and move north with you. I know it's still years away, but that way we can finally be together without the distance hanging over us. I could find something up there to keep me busy, maybe even make a little money. In the meantime, we could look for a beach place down here for vacations. You hate the cold, I reminded her. I love you more than I hate the cold, she said. And on those freezing nights, we'll just keep each other warm. I don't like the idea, I admitted. You'll be miserable up there. The only reason you do it is for me. Exactly, she said, because I can't stand being away from you. Being together makes it worth it. Then what about this? I suggested. I quit my job, move here to your mom's house. We stay warm, and more importantly, we're together. Honestly, I like that plan better. Even if you stop working, we'll figure it out. I don't know how much your mom still owed on that place, she said, but it can't be much. I kissed her, grinning. Then let's celebrate. Not so fast, kid, she whispered. There's one last thing we need to talk about, something that seems to linger in the minds of most couples right after marriage. I think we should merge our finances, split the expenses evenly, and handle everything as a team. Since this is what I do for a living, I probably have a clearer understanding of it than you might. That wasn't so hard, was it? So, can we go back to enjoying our night now? Aren't you the least bit curious? Don't you want to know what I actually make each month? Does it bother you in the slightest that I'm taking charge here? That it could bruise your pride somehow? I have absolute faith in you, and my love for you is beyond anything I can put into words. I know you'd never betray that trust. Just promise you won't scold me if I overspend from time to time. She shot me a quick look, then let out a soft laugh. That went far more smoothly than I ever imagined. Afterward, we made love, and this time, I actually managed to make her scream. By my count, she climaxed 3 times, a personal record, easily outshining anything I'd pulled off in the past 10 years. I lay there gasping for air while Chloe rested beside me, cheeks flushed, fanning herself as we both basked in the afterglow. If this is how you act when I let you take the reins, she teased. Maybe I should do it more often. You never have to worry about carrying anything alone, I told her. All I want is to have you with me. Having you as my wife means more than everything I own. Are you absolutely certain about that? She asked. Without a doubt. Good, she said with a mischievous grin. Because it's going to take me more than a few days to burn through $22 million. I froze. Wait, what did you just say? 22 million? She repeated, smiling like she'd just dropped a bomb. My mom left me a trust fund. It's got a little over 22 million in it. Well, I said, stunned, that means we can do far more for Laura than I thought. Scott, Laura doesn't need a dime from us, Chloe replied. Mom left her 2 million and even bought her a brand new apartment. She studied me for a moment, her expression softening. I've known for a long time the kind of man you are. I just didn't want to hurt your pride by telling you too soon. So, she added playfully, you file your paperwork, I'll file mine, and then we'll go find a little beach house with a pool. From that moment on, life felt so much easier. Every night, as I drifted into sleep, I silently thanked Ellen and remembered the words she used to repeat to me. Scott, I have plans for you. And as it turned out, she truly did.